July.
The counting of votes will continue again today in the European elections for the Midlands North West and Ireland South constituency. It's after Dublin's 4 MEPs were elected last night. Fine Gael's Regina Doherty ended up topping the poll ahead of Fianna Fáil's Barry Andrews, Sinn Féin's Lynn Boylan and Aidan O'Riordan of Labour. The public have been left shocked after learning that 3 kittens were put into a closed bag and abandoned in Letterkenny. They were found behind a bar last night. The 3 black kittens, who were all male, are believed to be around 10 weeks old and they're now in the care of charity Animals in Need Donegal. A spokesperson says they're doing well, but had they not been found when they were, it likely would have been a different story. An investigation has been launched following a burglary in Castle Derg. It's reported to have occurred in Killeater between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. on Monday last. PSNI are appealing to those who believe they witnessed anything suspicious to get in touch. And it's feared 5 mummified remains have been destroyed at one of Dublin's oldest churches. A man's been arrested after a fire was lit at St Michan's Church, which has been described as a dark day for the area. Stephanie Rowan reports from location.
Dublin Fire Brigade rushed to the scene of the fire here at St Michan's Church of Ireland yesterday afternoon. They put it out, but it's feared the amount of water they needed to use has destroyed 5 mummies in the crypt, which are hundreds of years old. The Archbishop of Dublin for the Church of Ireland, Michael Jackson, says it's unclear how bad the damage is.
That, I think, is the real question. What we've decided to do is to ask the National Museum to come today and do an assessment of that. We need to wait, but early signs are not good.
A man's been arrested and the scene's been sealed off for technical exam. No tours can take place until further notice. Stephanie Rowan, St Michan's Church in Dublin.
A UN report says both Israel and Hamas committed war crimes in the first few months of the war in Gaza. The inquiry finds both sides committed grave violations of international law. It says Hamas committed war crimes on October 7th, including internationally directing attacks against civilians, murder or willful killing, torture and taking hostages, including children. Meanwhile, Israel's alleged war crimes include starvation, arbitrary detention and killing and maiming tens of thousands of children. Looking now to weather, a dry day with a mix of cloud and sunny spells. That's with highs of 14 to 16 degrees. That's all for now from Highland Radio News. We'll be back with the latest at 10 o'clock.
Let's see. Avocados, bread. What else do we need?
Patrick, have you ever thought about wearing a fireman's uniform?
A what?
You know, yellow helmet, fire retardant jacket, a sprinkling of Iviz.
Why are we talking about this in the vegetable aisle?
How about a teacher? Garda Traffic Corps.
Sorry?
Deputy Planning Regulator?
At ICS Mortgages, we've got a mortgage designed specifically for public sector employees. It's a mortgage offer so good, everyone wants in on the action. To find out more, contact your local mortgage broker, call us direct on 0818 427 427 or visit icsmortgages.ie. Lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Dilosk DAC, trading as Dilosk and ICS Mortgages, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
And a very good morning to you. This is the 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. It's Donal Kavanagh with you until 12 noon today. A busy show lined up as always, but as we always say, the most important part of this programme is your views, your perspectives and your take on the issues of the day. So please do get in touch. Tell us what you want to talk about. You can do so via text and WhatsApp on 086 60 25,000. You can call us on 074 91 25,000. It's 00353 74 91 25,000 if you're outside of the dialing area. We're all over social media, of course. You can get us at Highland Hub on Facebook. We're at Highland Radio on X. We're on Snapchat, Instagram, comments at Highland Radio on email. And you can, of course, watch the show unfold on our Facebook pages, Highland Radio and Highland Radio News and Sport. You can also watch the station on our YouTube channel, Highland Radio Ireland, which was extremely busy over the weekend and over the past number of days as election counts came to a conclusion. And the Highland Radio channel is open and we're broadcasting live there, so you can see the show unfold. You can see our Zoom guests as they speak. You can see our studio guests as they speak as well. The downside, of course, is that you have to look at me, but it's a price worth paying, I think, for what is a new and innovative service here on Highland Radio. Let's look at the papers. Finn Valley Voice this morning. Lovely picture on the front of Father Anthony Hartnett being congratulated by the Bishop of Down and Conor, Alan McGuckian, after his ordination in St Eunan's Cathedral on Sunday. And I think it's nice that Bishop McGuckian came back from his new gig in Belfast to preside over that ordination, because he would have been monitoring Father Hartnett over the course of his studies in seminary, his ordination to diaconate and so on. So it's good that Bishop McGuckian did come to actually carry out that ordination ceremony. The main story on the Finn Valley Voice: Glenfinn's Martin Scanlon tops poll. Two new faces on Donegal County Council. The other one from the Finn Valley, of course, being Dakota Nick-Venman of Sinn Féin. Ansley Midlin writes, bonfires and cheering supporters led Glenfinman Martin Scanlon, independent home, on Sunday night after he topped the poll to be elected on the fifth count in the Lifford-Stranorlar electoral area. He surpassed the quota with a final vote count of 1,732. And I had the pleasure of covering the Lifford-Stranorlar electoral area myself over the weekend, and I got to speak to him just after he was elected, and a lovely gentleman, and I have no doubt he'll be a very interesting and vocal councillor in the chamber as well. Irish Independent this morning: coalition infighting flares as two MEPs lose their seats. The outgoing Green MEP Kieran Cuff lost his seat, as did the outgoing MEP Claire Daly. And Eamon Ryan, the Green leader, confronted the Taoiseach and Taoiseach at their weekly meeting. We're told he took issue with claims that his party is autocratic, insisting that coalition partners should not be attacking each other for electoral gain. And indeed, it was made clear. I don't know if you ever listened to the Pat the Power podcast. Ivan Yates and Matt Cooper, and Ivan Yates actually appeared in this programme with Greg some time ago when that podcast was launched. And I mean, effectively, Ivan Yates is saying that what the two main parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, in that coalition need to do now is start attacking the Greens, because they're going to need a scapegoat before a general election. And from what Eamon Ryan is saying, he believes that's already started. Interesting, on RTE last night as well, Claire Daly gave them very short shrift when they came and asked for an interview after it became clear her seat was gone. Her response to them was, "You had no interest in talking to me over the past 5 years. Why would you want to talk to me now?" And she pretty much just walked away. And that was her attitude. But Claire Daly gone. Her closest ally in the European Parliament, and indeed in the Dáil before that, would traditionally have been Mick Wallace. Mick Wallace is still fighting for a seat in Ireland South, but he is in a bit of an uncomfortable position at the moment as the count draws. Well, I say draws to a close. I mean, draws, if you're within a day and a half in Europe, you're drawing to a close at this stage. But Ireland South, Mick Wallace is still in there fighting, but by no means guaranteed yet. Interesting battle continuing in Midlands Northwest, and we're going to be going to that battle very shortly on the programme just to discuss it a little bit more. But certainly Sinn Féin's Michelle Gildernew saying last night that she sees it very unlikely that she will be able to take a seat. Chris McManus, it would seem the outgoing Sinn Féin MEP, is out of the running at this stage, and Kieran Mullooly looks set to take the fifth seat, with Barry Cowan, Luke Ming-Flanagan, Nina Carberry and Maria Walsh set to take the other seats. But we did hear Nicholas Crossan on the programme yesterday saying he believes that we could see a situation where Maria Walsh is overtaken by Michelle Gildernew. We'll be discussing that, as I say, a little bit later on in the programme. Irish Times this morning: main parties take European seats in Dublin as Greens lose out. Andrews, Doherty, Lynn Boylan and O'Riordan elected as MEPs in Dublin. And in Limerick, John Moran becomes the state first directly elected mayor. And the counts are continuing, we are told, in South and Midlands Northwest. We'll have more on that. So, Aidan O'Riordan elected to the Dáil. In Ireland South, Michael McNamara, the Clare MEP, the Clare TD at the moment, looks set to be elected to the Dáil. Now, in both those cases, they are opposition TDs, look set to be elected to Europe. Barry Cowan in Midlands Northwest is a different story. He is a government TD, so the government looks like they'll be down at least one TD in the event of Barry Cowan's election to Europe, as now seems very likely. So we'll have to see what happens with regards to by-elections and election dates and so on. Irish Daily Mail, similar to the Times headline: it's a washout for the Greens. Crushing results for Eamon Ryan's party as Kieran Cuff loses Euro seat, local election losses mount and Independent Ireland prosper. Now, Grace O'Sullivan, the other Green MEP, is in grave danger in South Ireland South, and she could well be losing her seat there as well. Rural TD Richard O'Donoghue of Independent Ireland says, "We now have as many councillors as the Green Party. We are growing. We have more independent councillors joining us." And the other story on the front of the Irish Daily Mail, by the way, anyone that takes an interest in international news will have been following this one. Guilty. Joe Biden says he will stand by his son as he faces 25 years in jail. Joe Biden was convicted on all counts on charges that he lied about drug use when he went to buy a gun. And there are apparently more charges and potentially more serious charges against Hunter Biden, the son of the sitting president, which he is set to face over the coming months. Moving on to the Red Tops, the front of the Irish Daily Star this morning. Pout for the count. Huffy Daly won't talk to RTE as she and DJ Niall Boylan lose out on MEP seat. Nothing to declare is the main story, and a picture of Claire Daly walking past the RTE reporter as she came to terms with the loss of her seat. The quote was, "You've had no interest in talking to me for 5 years, so I've no interest in talking to you now." And she fled the count centre, we're told, within minutes of being eliminated from a tight race, which also saw Niall Boylan fail to be elected, and he was being tipped as a potential MEP. Irish Daily Mirror, again, bad night for Daly. Ron the Double, a picture of Ronaldo celebrating scoring as Portugal beat Ireland 3-0 in a friendly last night. Also, a worrying quote from the chief of the GAA. Casement Park won't be ready in time for Euros games, and we go to the back and coming from Jarlath Burns, the story by Pat Nolan says GAA President Jarlath Burns has poured cold water on the prospect of Euro 2028 games being staged in Belfast. Casement Park is to host 5 games in the tournament, but ongoing delays to its redevelopment have led Burns to conclude that the UEFA deadline will not be met. When asked if he felt the chances of the Euros coming to Belfast had passed, Burns replied, "I do. I'm now pessimistic about the chances of the Euros being played at Casement Park." Irish Sun this morning. The main headline, by the way, on the Mirror is Killer Dog Ban. A very similar story on the front of the Irish Sun. Government acts on beasts. Ban XL devil dogs. Killer breed to be outlawed under new law. The government is planning to outlaw aggressive XL bully dogs. The Attorney General is examining how a law will work. It comes after Nicole Morley, 23, was mauled to death by her dogs last week. Minister Heather Humphreys said no dog's life is worth more than human life. And we knew from Minister Humphreys at the time, a week ago, that this was an issue that was under discussion anyway. And an expert group had already been set up under the chairmanship of a former Garda Commissioner, and it now seems as though the outcome of that process is going to be that there will be a ban on XL bully dogs, as is the case in England. Not in all parts of the UK, I believe. It's not the case in Scotland. I'm not sure about Wales and Northern Ireland, to be honest. Must double check up on that, but certainly XL bullies have been banned in England. Right, that's how your papers are looking this morning. Again, a reminder that if you want to contact us on the programme, you can do so. You can give us a call on 074 91 25,000. Shannon taking your calls along with Caroline, who's producing the show as well, as always. You can text or WhatsApp 086 60 25,000 or email comments at highlandradio.com. Going to take a short break. Back after these.
Daily newspapers are courtesy of Kelly's Centra and Diner, Mountaintop Letterkenny, winner of Best Family Dining at the Highland Radio Hospitality Awards. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
The moment you got told the good news.
Rob, you made the panel.
When the lads added you into the group. Skipping nights out, missing the crack. Rewatching classics and learning new tricks. Being driven to the biggest game of your life by your mam. And then you finally come on in the 51st minute. It's the minor moments that last a lifetime. The Electric Ireland GAA Minor Championships. This is major.
It's your fault. You deserve it. It's all in your head. They don't mean it. They can change. Recognizing male domestic abuse can be hard. Seeking support can be harder. For confidential advice and support, free phone the National Male Advice Line on 1-800-816-588. MAL, more than just a helpline.
I'm making a move.
Looking for real choice?
Leave diesel behind and make the move to Toyota Hybrid Electric at Kelly's Toyota Letterkenny and Mount Charles. World-leading hybrid electric technology, lower emissions driving, with the widest choice of hybrid electric models from Ireland's best-selling car brand. With flexible payment options available, make the move today at Kelly's Toyota Letterkenny and Mount Charles. Toyota, built for a better world.
Dare to create this June 15th with Circus Explored in Donegal, fairy folklore at the Giant Grave Cabin, puppet making in Monaghan, and lots more in your area. Crenn na Nog, the National Day of Free Creativity for Young People.
See creativeireland.gov.ie for more. Supported by RTE.
Check out the new summer ranges now in stock at Watson Menswear, Letterkenny. Top casual brands include Mishmash, French Connection, Tommy Bow and Penguin. If you're going to a big event, great formal wear names include Rimazumo, Sixth Sense and White Label, with special packages available for wedding parties. Watson Menswear open 7 days a week on Main Street, Letterkenny, and at watsonmenswear.com.
You're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. We are with you, as the name suggests, until 12 noon today. Very shortly, we're going to be discussing the situation with regards to the European election. We know that at present in Midlands Northwest, the situation is that Luke Flanagan is topping the poll. He seems set to take a seat. Barry Cowan very strong as well. He looks set to take a seat. Fine Gael doing very well between Nina Carberry and sitting MEP Maria Walsh. They have 145,000 first preference votes between them, and they both do look set that there will be two Fine Gael MEPs returned, as was the case before the election. Now, Sinn Féin are arguing that they believe there'll be a strong transfer between their two candidates, Michelle Galdernew and Chris McManus, and they're not ruling out Chris McManus actually taking the seat. Now, Chris McManus had been substantially behind Michelle Galdernew. Ireland South, they do believe there is a good chance they can take a seat there. Kathleen Function doing very well down in Ireland South as well. A ding-dong battle continuing there, and that's going to be an interesting one to watch unfold. We hope very shortly to be speaking to Deputy Padraig McLaughlin, and indeed I do believe at this point we can go to line one and say Deputy Padraig McLaughlin, good morning.
Good morning, Donal. How's it going?
Not bad at all. Now, Padraig, the situation in Midlands Northwest is on a knife edge, and yesterday evening very few people were giving Sinn Féin a chance in the constituency, including, it seems, Michelle Galdernew. You believe there is still a chance that Chris McManus isn't necessarily completely out of the question?
Yeah, there's Luke Flanagan had tweeted yesterday that there was a chance, and Dara Cleary of Fianna Fáil hasn't ruled it out. That's a position that we would hold too. We think that it's going to be a very, very close battle with Kieran Mullooly for that last seat. Kieran Mullooly, of course, is the Independent Ireland candidate, and he used to be a RT correspondent in the Midlands, so be a big name. So that's the scenario there. As you know, Lynn Boylan won a seat in Dublin for us last night, and Kathleen Function is very much in the running for a seat there in Ireland South. So that will be decided in the next 24 hours, I would imagine. So yeah, we're just going to keep watching the situation in Castlebar, and obviously we're hoping that Michelle Galdernew can be elected for Sinn Féin.
So you believe that Michelle Galdernew is the one that stands the chance of election? I heard some suggestion that Chris McManus might be able to take the seat. It seemed, certainly based on the figures we had yesterday, that Chris McManus was going to be too far behind to make up the ground. But you believe the transfer from Chris McManus to Michelle Galdernew can make that difference? Yeah,
it's going to be very tight. I mean, that was the assessment looking throughout yesterday, that whoever gets elected, and we think it's a battle between Michelle Galdernew and Kieran Mullooly for the last seat. Whoever makes it, it's going to be very, very tight. So no, we wouldn't be we wouldn't be saying that we're defeated there now at all. We still think there's a chance, and a very good chance in Ireland South. So we could end up with 2 or 3 MEPs at the end of this.
It is disappointing from the party's point of view, especially given that not that long ago, Midlands Northwest was being spoken about by Sinn Féin as a constituency where 2 European seats were possible.
Yeah, I think there's always an analysis. After a split, like in football, you can get a proper picture after the game, and the votes are counted in this case. And I suppose if you take the last time, you had Maria Walsh, who was, obviously the Rose of Tralee, a big household name, was elected for Fine Gael. This time they've added Nina Carberry, so the sitting MEP didn't seek re-election for Fine Gael. They replaced him with Nina Carberry, of course, who would be a household name. And then you have Kieran Malooly, who I've mentioned earlier, who was the RTE correspondent for many, many years, a very, very famous name, particularly in that Midlands region. And of course, Luke Ming-Flanagan, who I suppose would fish in the same swim in the same political water as Sinn Féin. So, when you look back, it was a tough challenge for us. And European elections are all about voter recognition. Yeah. So for us, it's been a tough one, and we're still hoping we can take that last seat.
Obviously, Michelle Gildernew will be known by people who watch Northern Ireland politics, former Agriculture Minister, former MLA in Fermanagh South Tyrone. And from that point of view, she is going to have a profile in this part of the world. The question is, once you get down toward the southern part of the constituency, that name recognition is going to fall away. As you say, Kieran Malooly does have that name recognition, and Kieran Malooly is proving to be, from all the tallies, very transfer friendly. And really that could be down to that battle. I mean, can Michelle Gildernew get the same level of transfer as Kieran Malooly does, even from candidates swimming in, as you said yourself, the same political waters?
Yeah, and that's the challenge, when you're up against a name that people know, that they've heard on their TV screens for many years, that's a tough one. And it is true that, our two candidates wouldn't just have that same voter recognition in large parts of the constituency. And obviously the Independent Ireland party, the Fine Gael party, have gone for celebrity names, and it may well work for them. And that's just the toughness of European elections. Whether you're, in the case of, in places like Ireland South, Dublin, you also have, you have celebrity names in there too. Some of them will succeed, some of them won't. So, it's a tough challenge, European elections. And I suppose looking at the local elections, the reflection for us is that, we had 81 seats when we came in, so we had a very disappointing election in 2019. We're sitting now at about 102, 103, so we've gained about 25%. In Donegal, I was, obviously disappointed for the candidates who weren't elected, but I was very happy to re-elect our 10 councillors. We're now the joint largest party on council. In my own home area of South Inishowen, we had a fantastic vote turnout for us. So, it's sort of ups and downs for us across the country. But to be quite honest, and I said this yesterday, it was on RT Radio, we're disappointed that we didn't hit the standards that we set for ourselves, but we need to get over that now. People listening today in Donegal, and I know it, I've been in so many doors over the recent months, people are not happy with this government. They're not happy with the housing crisis, 100% redress, not happy with the health crisis. So I don't believe that they want another 5 years of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael.
The big worry, though, from your point of view, has got to be, up until quite recently, for people that were not happy with this government, the only alternative was Sinn Féin. Basically, Mary Lou was the Taoiseach in waiting. Sinn Féin were the alternative. You've now got groupings like Independent Ireland who are saying, excuse us, we're getting bigger, we're getting bigger, we're getting bigger. And perhaps there is another alternative, and people are starting to look toward that alternative, and that's leaving you, to a certain extent, on sidelines that you wouldn't have been on 6 months ago.
Yeah, and something, I mean, that's a challenge for us. Certainly, a lot of people who voted in the general election in 2020 for Sinn Féin didn't vote for us in the European elections. I understand in the local elections. I mean, if you go around Donegal, you would see Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael councillors, and the bulk of them are very, very good councillors. And I would know for a fact that there are people who will vote for their local Fianna Fáil councillor in Donegal, but they'll be voting for Sinn Féin in the general election. So our challenge is to shape up what is the alternative government going to look like. What will we do around housing? For example, in Donegal, there's absolutely no plan to build affordable housing for young families in public land. No plan whatsoever. We have a plan around that. For our health service, we know the crisis in Letterkenny Hospital. We have a plan around how you change that around. So we need to win those hearts and minds. And we're humble enough to say in this election, Donal, in this local and European election, we didn't hit the targets we wanted. But we also need to, dust ourselves down, get match fit. This general election now is coming. And I want to say this too. In recent days, I have been taken aback, frankly, by the arrogance of the leaders of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, and basically saying that they're going to get another 5 years in government, that the people are happy out there, they've spoken. Let them not confuse the popularity of their local councillors on the ground with the government. As I've said, I know for a fact there are large numbers of people who voted Fianna Fáil councillors or Fine Gael in this election who are voting for us when it comes to the general election.
The Sinn Féin strategy, as I read it leading up to the election, and I say this as a voter who is driving around looking at posters and listening to debates. Okay, obviously I have something of an inside view working as I do in journalism. But my perception was of the Sinn Féin strategy that what you were trying to do was draw a very clear link between the local election and the general election. Even the slogan, change starts here. You were effectively saying we are working toward being in government. We start locally in the county council. There were pictures all over Letterkenny of yourself and Jeremy McMonigal, or yourself and Nuala Hughes, or yourself and Sandra Haughey. It was replicated elsewhere, I'm sure. In the further west you went, it was pictures of Pearse and the local candidates there. And effectively what you were saying was better housing, better health services, change starts here. You were saying to people, vote Sinn Féin locally, and then when it comes to the general election, your local councillors will work with Sinn Féin deputies that you vote in then, and we're going to affect change at a national level. And there was an attempt to draw a distinct link between the local and the national. It caught on in Donegal, but Donegal now seems to have about 10% of Sinn Féin's councillors nationally. It may have caught on here. It doesn't seem to have caught on elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. So I do, Donal. We did attempt to, because we were starting, particularly down the country, from a very low base. 81 councillors. 2019, we'd lost half our seats. It was a terrible election for us down the country. Funny enough, Donal, in Donegal, actually 2019 was a good election. We won an extra seat and we got a very good vote from Matt Carthy in the European election, but we had a very bad day down the country. So there was an attempt to, in order to win back seats, to try to get people to think about the general election. But understandably, when you look back in the final analysis, they had strong local councillors, incumbents, people who had put in a good service for their community. And what they were thinking about was their local town, their community. They weren't thinking about the housing crisis or the health service at this moment in time. But the mistake that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil may make, their leaders, is that if they think that the popularity of, say, a Martin McDermott up in Inishowen, or say, an Anthony Malloy or a Kieran Brogan or a Paul Canning and so on, or a Jimmy Kavanagh in Letterkenny, if they're mistakenly thinking that the support for those guys will translate in the general election, that's a very arrogant position to take. And I think a lot of people have been angered in recent days that they voted for their local councillor, they voted on local issues. They are not happy with this government, and I'm looking forward to the general election because I think they'll get their answer when that comes.
With regards to the timing of a general election, three things can happen. What's believed to be the most likely is the government will go in the late autumn, possibly mid-November. What could happen is Simon Harris could decide after the local elections, we're on a roll, this has gone really well, let's kick Sinn Féin while they're down, let's call it and go now in July. And the third option is that Simon Harris is a young Taoiseach, he's only in there, 62, 63 days, that Simon Harris decides to push it out and go right through to the end and hold the election in February or March of next year. Which of those do you believe will happen, and which of those would best suit Sinn Féin?
Well, the Green Party obviously haven't had a good election, and they've lost half their council seats, and I think it looks like they're going to lose their two MEP seats. So the Green Party will want to stay. I suspect Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, if you look at everything they've said in recent days, their leadership, there's a real arrogance, there's a hubris there, and I think that they will believe that they can win the popular vote. I am very, very confident that when we have this election, and I suspect it's going to be later this year, probably in October, November, when this election takes place, I think that this government will be replaced by a new government, and I believe that Sinn Féin, and we do need to have humility. We do need to listen to those voters who are frustrated with us in this election when they voted in the European election. We have to listen to that. But I'm convinced, as we did in 2019, we can turn this around and we can give the government of change that people want, and particularly I'm thinking of the housing crisis. I'm thinking of 100% redress in Donegal. The only pathway to genuine 100% redress is a Sinn Féin-led government. That's just the reality. So we need to get that. I mean, I'm in politics. I mean, I'm around politics a long time. The only reason I stay on is I genuinely want to see the big issues in my county resolved. I want to see housing be made affordable again. I want 100% redress for our families, proper 100% redress. And I want our hospital to be a model for hospital. We are being utterly neglected. The stories I heard of what's going on in that emergency department is, I mean, I knew, but I just heard more and more and more stories. It is appalling, the standard of what we're left with, because we don't have enough nurses, doctors and beds. So that's why I stay in politics. That's why I'm determined that we will have a new government after the next election. I do believe we can win that if we take the lessons in this election, work hard, be humble, and work with our people to get that change.
There's the caller asking if Sinn Féin are paying the price for some of the decisions that they've taken. For instance, a caller says that Sinn Féin councillors and others in Donegal County Council voted against houses in Buncrana, and are things like that coming back to bite them?
Well, that's just nonsense. Like, I have, it's my hometown. The issue there was the access road. We had agreed, the council, for many, many years on the Inner Relief Road. That Inner Relief Road, so that's linking from the Cockhill area into the Cassie Road. It's a really essential piece of infrastructure. It's never been delivered. So all that was asked for is that you would link those new houses and build more houses onto that new road. So there was no objection to houses. It was how you would access those houses. And look at the votes in Buncrana. Like Jack Murray, Terry Cross and Niamh McGuinness, they got over 40% of the vote. Absolutely massive mandate. So that speaks for itself in Buncrana. Like across Donegal, I am very proud that we didn't lose a seat, and our candidates who weren't elected got a great vote. So, I'm really proud of our team. I think the people of Donegal are with us. But now we need to push on to the general election, and that's the big one. That's the one that really, really matters to people. And I know that there's people who are in a bit of despair right now. They're thinking, are we going to change this government? Will Sinn Féin be able to do it? I can tell you, I am more determined than ever after this election that we will have a change of government. We desperately need it.
One of the big stories in Donegal over the past number of days has been the success of 100% redress. Of 5 candidates, 4 elected, and the 5th was in there very, very close to the end. And Dakota Nick Venman took that final seat in Lifford Stranorlar, but it was a very, very uncomfortable day for the party, and no one was taking anything for granted that day. And I was there, I could see that. From their point of view, is this success of 100% redress, is this a flash in the pan, or is this going to provide a very, very credible threat to everybody else in the forthcoming general election?
Yeah, I think that, to me, I mean, obviously the leaders of the campaign, Mike Action Group, the Redress Focus Group, Paddy Diver, Michael Doherty, made that call to people to put 100% redress councillors onto Donegal County Council, and it was very successful. And I think it's a welcome development in that you now have, the campaigners, the affected homeowners on the council, making the case for better resources, fighting with central government to have alternative accommodation. But most importantly, we need to have a 100% redress scheme. But the only way that happens is with a government that can deliver it. And Sinn Féin, I mean, obviously we're a 100% redress party too. And you could see, like in the Shoan Peninsula, for example, the majority of councillors now will be Sinn Féin and 100% redress. That means a majority of councillors who are in political parties that are committed to 100% redress. I think that's going to make a big difference. Similarly across Donegal. So I think it's a welcome development. I look forward to working with them, both locally and nationally, because it's clear now that this scheme is not working. Those who said it was a good scheme have been proved utterly wrong. People are short by between 50 to up to 150,000. How the hell are they going to get that? If you're an older person, you're not going to get a loan to get that. If you're somebody with limited resources, so there's a cruel scenario that we have. And I am determined, this is the biggest commitment in my political life, is to get to the place where we have Sinn Féin in government, working with the campaigners in Donegal, with a 100% redress scheme for everybody, and that's where we want to get to.
But from the point of view of getting Sinn Féin into the government, I mean, it does seem there is some way to go, and the party does have rebuilding work to do. Deputy Padraig McLaughlin, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning, and we'll be tracking that progress and tracking the pre-election campaign and the election campaign as it revs up over the coming months with interest. It'll be a quite enough summer, but one suspects as soon as we get into August, September and the pre-Dáil conventions and meetings, an election campaign is going to start in September, whether it's called or not.
No, absolutely. I'm ready. My party are ready. Obviously, we'll do our review. You should review. I mean, after every election, you have a review, but we have some lessons to learn. As I say, we have gained 25% more seats. We've in places like Donegal, we've done well. In places like Monaghan, Offaly, Waterford, Kerry, there's lots of places where people are happy with the election, but yes, there's lots of places where we should have done better. So listen, be humble. That's the one thing about being a public representative. You're a servant of the people. They speak every 4 or 5 years. Take the lessons, whether you win or lose, take the lessons and move on. But more important than Sinn Féin's fortunes is that the people out there deserve a government that can tackle the real problems of housing and health. And I'm determined that they'll get that government after the next election.
Thank you very much indeed. We're back after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Find the sunshine at McElhenney's and Ballybuffet. Shop in store and discover thousands of discounted lines with at least 20% off. Purchase any eligible discounted product with the sunshine on it to be in with a chance of winning a holiday worth €1,500 in collaboration with Atlantic Travel Letterkenny. Don't miss out. Visit us in store at McElhenney's Ballybuffet and find your sunshine.
At Opel, it pays to go electric. Quite literally, in fact. That's because our electric models now cost less than petrol or diesel. Order your new 242 Mokka Electric or Astra Electric and avail of our €5,000 Opel Eco Bonus, flexible payment options, plus 3 years free servicing. You'll be all powered up with lower road tax and lower running costs. Find out more about our 242 offers at Heron Auto Opel. See heronopel.ie for details.
This year, Kia has unbeatable offers just for you. With any 242 pre-order, you'll receive a €500 Super Value voucher and 7-year warranty. And there's more. Enjoy 0% finance on all electric vehicles and get a free home charger. At iMotors, we're proud to stock the World Car of the Year, the EV9, and Donegal's best-selling car, the Sportage. Visit iMotors in Drumkeen or Malin today and take advantage of these limited time offers. Don't miss out.
iMotors, fearless generation.
Experience total relaxation in the Spa at Orchids at the Holyrood Hotel, Bundoran. Recently awarded Best Hotel Spa Getaway at the RSVP Spa Awards. Enjoy luxury spa baths, revitalising facials, rejuvenating massages, pampering body treatments, outdoor hot tub and tranquil Japanese garden. Visit on a luxury spa day, pop in for some me time or buy the perfect present with a gift voucher. Relax and let the Spa at Orchids transport you to another world. See holyroodhotel.com.
Coming this year to Dublin for the very first time. 71 shows completely sold out. Hamilton at the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. Experience the revolutionary musical that's taken the world by storm. Witness history come alive with electrifying performances and unforgettable music with a modern twist. Book your place now on the outlet at highlandradio.com or call us on 074 91 25,000.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. A few of your comments. Sinn Féin messed up at the last referendum by agreeing with the main parties as well as promoting the Rainbow Group plus the immigrants and will jump on a popular bandwagon. I voted for them up until now. Another caller says Sinn Féin talk about the arrogance of the other two main parties. Does he hear himself? Sinn Féin's arrogance is the reason for the losses now. Deputy McLaughlin says that he is being humble. Another caller says, what are the politicians' views on immigration and open borders? Now, we're going to go to line 1 and we're going to speak to Maureen Murchu, who is CEO of the Irish Self-Catering Federation. There is a registration of short-term letting bill going through the system, and its implications for tourism along the Wild Atlantic Way could be immense. The ISCF have written an open letter to the government to stop unintended and serious harm being inflicted on the rural economy. Moira joins us on the line. Moira, good morning.
Good morning, Donal. How are you?
Very well indeed. Moira, what is the threat that's posed to the tourism sector? Because on the face of it, this bill seems to make sense, to register the accommodations and get everything done, get everything above board. That all seems to make sense. But you believe unintended consequences could really come into play here?
I really do, Donal. We've actually been calling for a register since 2016. We believe the register itself is an excellent idea because it identifies everybody who is working in the tourism business, and in Donegal it would allow for expansion where more accommodation is needed. And as we know, hotels are really not viable in lots of rural areas of Donegal. But we have got a report from Fáilte Ireland from 2022 where they're planning to close down 636 self-catering units in Donegal. Now, what's that going to do to the tourism offering in Donegal? It's going to decimate it. And we want clarity from government that this is not going to happen. The problem for us is not the register, but it's actually associated planning legislation which needs clarity. And we've been calling for this for over 2 years from the Department of Housing, who we have to discuss planning with.
Now, you said there that Fáilte Ireland is planning to close down over 600 self-catering accommodations in Donegal. Are you saying they are actively planning to shut down existing businesses, or are you saying that they may be forced to do so in the future if planning elements of this registration process are fully adopted?
They may be forced to do so if the certain planning parts are adopted. Now, planning should not have anything to do with the register. At EU level, there is no requirement for planning. But the document that I'm looking at is the estimates of short-term tourism let properties which may be suitable for long-term rental. And that's where I'm getting the figure from. And that's a document from 22.
Yeah.
And that is what has got us really, really worried.
Is that a green paper, a strategy document? What is the status of that document you're looking at? Because in the final analysis...
It's an analysis, and it was done for the Oireachtas Tourism Committee in 2022.
Yeah.
We only got it in the last month as a result of a Freedom of Information piece. So, when we saw those documents, we could suddenly see where Catherine Martin was getting her figures of closing down. It may close down 10,700 self-catering units around the country. But over 60% of those are in the Wild Atlantic Way region. They're not in central Dublin where the big accommodation issue is.
Yeah.
And they're going to close down. They're not looking at self-catering as bringing money into the area, the value of it for an economic point of view, the value to the restaurants, the pubs, the visitor attractions, the activity providers, all depending on people coming into an area. And if they close the properties down, it's not just us, it's the associated businesses which will also be affected. And that is why our colleagues in tourism signed this letter with us, which we gave to the Taoiseach yesterday.
In terms of the regulation, does this require specific legislation with specific wording, or can this be done by ministerial order? Can it just be done by Minister Catherine Martin on the conditions that she chooses, or does it have to go through the Dáil with a specifically worded bill?
It's got to go through the Dáil with a specifically worded bill. So even if she announced the bill today, we would have about 3 months to debate it. And allowing for the fact that the summer recess is coming up, it won't be in place until the autumn.
And the reality is we could well be looking at a change of government in October, November. Exactly. So this could be well into next year before this even gets onto the floor of the Dáil.
But they have only 2 years from last April to implement it under EU regulations. And with EU requirements, if you don't implement something, you get fined. So what the Europe is looking for is data. They're not looking for planning. They're not looking for anything else. In fact, Europe is very much in favour of rural tourism. They want to increase the amount of rural tourism. But what has been tacked on here is a planning legislation which will close us down.
Has it been confirmed by government that they intend including that into the wording of a bill? Because very often policy documents can emerge, green papers can emerge, white papers can emerge, and they contain all sorts of potential wordings. But when it actually comes down to the final wording as drafted, that final wording as drafted is very different. So obviously there is a window there for you to politically lobby and make sure that the final draft of that bill does not include those provisions which you believe will endanger you.
Exactly. So we were advised last week by an article in the paper that Darragh O'Brien announced that he was bringing legislation to Cabinet yesterday to deal with the planning. And then yesterday morning they changed their minds. They got the letter from us and they have now changed their minds, and Darragh O'Brien wants to talk to us before he brings planning legislation in front of the Cabinet. So we think that is a positive thing that's come out of getting this letter. And I'm actually leaving you in a few minutes, and I'm going to be meeting Catherine Martin at the Tourism and Hospitality Forum, and we will be discussing what her timeline for the register is going to be and how she is going to support the industry, and make sure that we don't lose 10,700 properties across the country, or in Donegal, more importantly, 636.
In terms of the planning legislation that they're looking at putting in, obviously that's an effort to ensure that there are minimum standards. I'm sure you, as providers of self-catering accommodation, will want to include those minimum standards. Do you believe there is potentially a compromise there whereby the government would say, right, well, we would expect minimum standards to be applied and we'll give you a certain amount of time to actually do it? Because I'm sure into the future you want to ensure that the accommodation you're providing to your guests and to your clients is as good as is possible. And in terms of those planning regulations, presumably the reason anyone, be it Fáilte Ireland or be it government, whoever, the reason any of them are looking at imposing planning regulations is to ensure that the accommodation being provided is as safe and as adequately, and as adequate is the wrong word. It's as safe and it's as good as possible to be presented to guests. Yeah.
Well, the good thing is that we already have a quality assurance system within the Irish Self-Catering Federation, and all our members adhere to that. Fáilte Ireland has a quality assurance system as well, but we have over 6,500 members, which is a lot more than Fáilte Ireland has within their system. So all our members are already quality assured. They meet the safety standards, insurance, all that sort of thing.
Is that then potentially the compromise? Is the potential compromise then that the bill states that all accommodations must meet the requirements of that quality assurance scheme? If that were in the bill, would that be acceptable?
I think it would. But it would also, they would also want to give permission for those who are already in the industry to continue. Well, you can call that a derogation, you can call it the grandfather rule, but whatever you call it, you need to allow businesses that are already trading for many years to continue. And we also need, in a bill, to allow new businesses to be able to open. So we need clear planning guidelines for people who want to set up self-catering, if they want to diversify their family farm buildings and change what they're doing. If they want to set up glamping, they need clear guidelines, because people are applying for businesses and being turned down right, left and centre. And we don't agree with people opening up, for particularly things like glamping, without planning permission. It's very expensive to set up. You want to make sure that you're entitled to do it. So we need a sensible policy direction for self-catering as part of a broader tourism policy. So there is a national tourism policy which is long overdue. The last one came out from Michael Ring in 2015. There hasn't been one since. There's a new policy, government policy on tourism due. Whether we see it before the next election, I don't know. But we want a clear plan as to where they want to go and how they can support small family businesses all over rural Ireland.
Maura, you did tell us that you are going to a meeting very shortly with Catherine Martin, and maybe there's no maybe about it. I'm sure these issues are going to be discussed and discussed comprehensively. thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. It's an interesting situation. I mean, I think ultimately everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants to bring in tourism and to present those incoming tourists with the best possible facilities and accommodations and experience that they can possibly have. And I mean, if you and government can work together to achieve that, I'm sure a compromise can be found here. And maybe, as we said, maybe adherence to that quality assurance scheme could be the way to go. In the meantime, Maura, we'll watch this one with interest. And thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Not at all. Thank you very much, Donal.
It's been our pleasure, Moira. Thank you. Slán.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Irish strawberry season is here. Let the fun begin. Pick up a punnet of Keeling's Irish strawberries in store today. Tasty, sweet, feel-good fruit. Fresh from our farm. Love that Keeling's feeling.
Reimagine your home with an interior design consultation from Foy & Company. At Foy's, we work with commercial and residential clients, and our qualified interior designers and stylists have decades of experience. Call in-store in Letterkenny and book your interior design consultation today. We also offer in-house consultations. Bring us your ideas, your photos, your wallpaper scraps, or your dream boards, and we'll help turn them into tastefully detailed new interior. Transform your home with a visit to Foy & Company.
1984 saw the launch of the Macintosh, the first untethered spacewalk, Maradona's world record transfer fee, and a small car with a big personality met the world for the first time. The Seat Ibiza is 40 years young. To celebrate, Seat introduces the special edition Ibiza with a range of style and design features to make it even better. And not to be outdone, there's also a limited edition Arona to stir the senses. The limited edition Seat Ibiza and Arona. Discover our latest offers at DMG Motors Donegal Town.
For all your training needs, Northwest Forest Services Training Department Ballybuffet offer a wide range of training courses from training bodies such as NPTC City and Guilds, QQI Lantra and ABA International. They also now do quad courses in line with the new guidelines and regulations for all quad users. If you have a group, they can come to you. For a full list of training courses and availability, contact Northwest Forest Service Ballybuffet on 074 913233.
Hello, Declan Early here. Looking forward to seeing all our dancing friends in the Plaza, Buncrana this Saturday night. Dancing 10 to 12, admission €15. That's the Plaza, Buncrana.
Highland Radio weather updates with McElhenny's. Support local at McElhenny's. With 53 years experience in fashion, beauty and home, we're here for you. Plus, enjoy M-Card rewards when you shop in-store at McElhenny's Ballybuffet.
And Met Éireann tell us to expect a dry day with a mix of cloud and sunny spells. Top temperatures 14 to 16 degrees Celsius in light westerly or variable winds, backing southwest by this afternoon. It'll be dry for much of tonight with clear spells to start. However, it will become overcast as the night goes on, with rain and drizzle developing in Donegal around dawn. Lowest temperatures of 8 to 10 degrees Celsius in moderate southerly winds. Looking toward tomorrow, however, not necessarily as good. Wet and overcast tomorrow morning and afternoon. The rain will become widespread, slowly clearing northeastwards through the evening with scattered showers following from the rest. The rain will linger in the northeastern part of the region until nightfall tomorrow, however. It'll be breezy and moderate to fresh southerly winds, veering westerly and easing again once the rain clears. Top temperatures tomorrow of 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. Now, before I go on, I just want to say we carried a news story this morning from our National Service which confused the Creasler Regeneration Plan and a planning application. Now, as we covered extensively on the news and on the show, the Regeneration Plan was launched in March in association with Donegal County Council, the Creasler Working Group and the Creasler Community Association, supported by Arup, and that plan was very well received by the community, and we apologise if any confusion was caused there. Caller says, morning, I have a question. My son finished his junior cert. He is 15 years old and was looking for some light summer work. I don't know if this is a legal age or if a 15-year-old can work during the summer. Any help on this topic would be appreciated. Another caller says, the world is an unfair place. There are those who enjoy infinite privileges and those who are condemned to the most miserable living conditions. None of this has to do with merit, ability or effort. It's just the gap between rich and poor. Thank goodness that every now and again someone in their own small way does an act of good. I want to say good morning to everyone who's listening to us and watching us on our online service. Anne-Marie and Annie, a very good morning to you. Comment in from Darren. Darren says they don't need planning permission for modular homes for refugees. People need to wake up and take our rights and our country back. Second-class citizens we are in our own country. Just a few more comments. Just want to mention that I pulled in on Sunday evening to the Finn Valley Centre. To my surprise, there was a car in a disabled bay with no badge. I had to double park, get my sister out of the wheelchair and had to leave her unattended. So I parked outside the car park. Shocking. I have made contact with the person in question. Another caller says, bring our existing hotels back into play in Donegal and stop using them as refugee centres. We would have plenty of beds for tourism where tourists could come and stay at a reasonable price. Tourism is devastated here for another season. Caller says, tell Padraig we are sick of the flip-flopping. Sinn Féin stand for nothing. They're all for open borders. They're not fully supporting the redress campaign, yet all these people are flocking into our wee country, jamming up the health and housing, can't get a doctor or a dental appointment. Sinn Féin need to listen to the people right now because at the moment they are no better than Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael. That's the perspective of one listener. Another caller says, until Sinn Féin get rid of Mary Lou, they are finished. Does Padraig not know this? Another caller says, I think all the parties are underestimating the immigration situation as it relates to tourism, health and housing, and that is proving a problem. So says a listener. Now, just before we go to a break and to the news with Donna Marie, just want to tell you that there's a monster bingo in the Inishowen Gateway Hotel on Wednesday the 12th of June, which is this evening. Doors open at 7:30. Bingo starts at 8:30. €3,000 worth of prizes, including a top bingo prize of €1,000. There's also a raffle with lots of prizes on the night. And that's a fundraiser for Gaelscoil Buncrana. And that comes into us from the Gaelscoil Parents Fundraising Committee there at Gaelscoil Buncrana. Now, time on Highland Radio, it's 2 minutes to 10 o'clock. We're going to take a short break in just a few moments. We'll have the news with Donna Marie Doherty.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
Here at Kelly Cleaning Equipment, we have everything you need to clean your home, garden and business. As an official Gold Plus cashier dealer, we offer brand-leading domestic and commercial pressure washers, vacuum cleaners, floor scrubbers, steam cleaners, carpet cleaners and much more. Come and see us at Eurohouse, Killybegs Road, Donegal Town or online at kellycleaningequipment.ie. And for a limited time only, claim up to €150 cashback when purchasing a Cashier Professional Pressure Washer. Kelly Cleaning Equipment. Choose Cashier.
Charge into summer with TUI. Choose from a beach cruise or city break or Mexico flying direct from Dublin. Holiday sorted. TUI, live happy.
Cool it this summer with the Curry's range of fridge freezers. Get the higher fridge freezer for only €849, save €130. Or save €50 on the LG 6040 fridge freezer for only €559. And don't forget, our experts will deliver and install your new appliance for half price. Shop in store or online at currys.ie.
Home improvements are well worth making, especially when they build towards a more sustainable future for us all. SSE Airtricity is here to help with the Generation Green Home Upgrade. From insulation, heating, solar panels, windows and doors to full home retrofits, we're your one-stop shop for energy solutions to suit all budgets. It's a simple, hassle-free process with end-to-end project management and a streamlined SEAI grant application process. So make some home improvements that will make a real difference at ssceairtricity.com/home upgrade. Registered with the SEAI for home energy upgrades. Grants offered are provided by the Government of Ireland with the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland.
For the best breakfast in town, take a seat at Kelly's Diner, Mountain Top. Try the renowned Early Bird Special or the Full Irish, or go all the way with the ultimate Monster Trucker. There's also healthy options like Kelly's Protein Breakfast or turkey and scrambled eggs. Choose from the full breakfast menu every day at Kelly's award-winning diner at Mountain Top, Letterkenny.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's Donna Marie Doherty with the news at 10 o'clock.
2 people have been arrested in Donegal and Meath in connection with the murder of a police officer in the north and the attempted murder of a second in the 1970s. RUC Constable Robert John McPherson was killed after being called to reports of suspicious activity at a post office in Dungiven, County Derry in July of 1975. The PSNI say Gardaí arrested 2 men aged 73 and 72 at Dresses in Donegal and Meath who are due to appear before the High Court in Dublin today. A third man aged 71 was detained by the PSNI in Derry. A man has been charged following a fire at one of Dublin's oldest churches. It's feared 5 mummies, which are hundreds of years old, have been destroyed at St Michan's Church on Church Street. The crypts are thought to have been inspired by Bram Stoker's Dracula and are now closed to tourists. The Archbishop of Dublin for the Church of Ireland, Michael Jackson, has described it as a dark day for the area.
These are the mortal remains of people who once lived like us. To do this sort of act is actually an act of desecration. So I suppose my sadness as well is what you might call where we are with human values, why somebody would do this.
Aer Lingus flights could be grounded within weeks as pilots look set to take strike. Talks between both sides in the dispute broke down yesterday without an agreement, and the result of a ballot strike is due later. Alan Cantwell reports.
The Irish Airline Pilots Association began balloting members at the airline last week. That vote will conclude at midday, with the expectation pilots will conclusively back their union's call for industrial action. Pilots have been pushing for pay increases in the region of 20%. The Labour Court recommended they should receive a pay increase of 9.25%. However, the figure was below the 23.8% that the union members had been seeking. The airline said the union was demanding an unsustainable level of increase in pilot pay. It added this was not supported by any increase in productivity or flexibility. The union members voted to reject the Labour Court recommendation last week that aimed to resolve the ongoing pay dispute.
The public have been left shocked after learning that 3 kittens were put into a closed bag and abandoned in Letterkenny. They were found behind a bar on Friday last. The 3 black kittens, who are all male, are believed to be around 10 weeks old, and they're now in the care of charity Animals in Need Donegal. A spokesperson says while they're doing well, had they not been found when they were, it likely would have been a different story. An investigation has been launched following a burglary in Castlederg. It's reported to have occurred in Killeater between 1 and 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon last. PSNI are appealing for those who believed they witnessed anything suspicious to get in touch. A UN report says both Israel and Hamas committed war crimes in the first few months in the war in Gaza. The inquiry finds both sides committed grave violations of international law. It says Hamas committed war crimes on October 7th, including intentionally directing attacks against civilians, murder or willful killing, torture and taking hostages, including children. Israel's alleged war crimes include starvation, arbitrary detonation and killing and maiming tens of thousands of children. Irish journalist Hannah McCarthy is in Israel and says Israeli airstrikes on Gaza are continuing.
So the military strikes are continuing. They have not stopped, and even after the UN resolution on Monday, there were strikes conducted in Gaza by the Israelis, showing that until a ceasefire is done, that they will continue with their military strikes.
Agriculture runoff and poorly treated human sewage are the main reasons there's been no improvement in Ireland's water quality. A new report from the EPA found while there were improvements in some areas last year, they were offset with failing standards in others. CEO with Sustainable Water Network Sinead O'Brien says our rivers, lakes and coasts need to be protected.
We're starting from a very low base of half our water bodies unhealthy, but it's not showing any improvement whatsoever. And in fact, this shows a slight deterioration in the amount of rivers and lakes that are healthy. So we're calling on the government to introduce far stronger measures to address this situation for once and for all.
Looking now to weather, a dry day with a mix of cloud and sunny spells, highs of 14 to 16 degrees. That's all for now from Highland Radio News. We'll be back with headlines at 11 o'clock.
The obituary notices for Wednesday morning, June 12th. The death has taken place at his home of Patrick McCallion, Clagan, Culdaff. Patrick's remains will leave Eamon McLaughlin's funeral home, Station Road, Carndonagh, this evening at 5 p.m, going to his home. Funeral from there on Friday at 10:30 a.m. for 11 a.m. funeral mass in St Mary's Church, Boken, followed by burial in the adjoining graveyard. Funeral mass can be viewed live on www.culdaffparish.com. Family time from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. and on the morning of the funeral. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu if desired to the Chest, Heart and Stroke Unit, Letterkenny University Hospital, care of any family member or Eamon McLaughlin Funeral Director. The death has occurred of Joseph Joe Irwin, Ballyarrel, Killygordon, reposing at his late residence. Funeral leaving from there tomorrow afternoon at 1:30 p.m, going to St Patrick's Church, Crossroads, Killygordon, for Requiem Mass at 2 p.m, with burial afterwards in the adjoining churchyard. Family flowers only, please. Family time, please, from 10 p.m. to 11 a.m. and on the morning of the funeral. The Requiem Mass can be streamed live on the parish webcam. The death has taken place of Sandra Key, ní Lada, Avalty Gort, Killygordon. Her remains are reposing at her home. Funeral leaving from her home this afternoon at 2 p.m. for 2:30 p.m. funeral service in St Anne's Church, Manellan, followed by burial afterwards in the family plot in Tockboyne Parish Church Graveyard, Churchtown, Carrigans. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu to the Oncology Ward, Letterkenny University Hospital, care of Terence McClintock Funeral Director. For family information and more details regarding wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Keep it fresh with Aldi's Super 6 fresh fruit and veg offers. This week, aubergines were 79 cent, now 49 cent each. Flat mushrooms were €1.05, now 49 cent. And Joya apple 6-pack was $2.79, now $1.29. Hungry for more? See all Super 6 in store, including large red onions and salad tomatoes, plus juicy nectarines. Sweet! Delivered fresh every day with a fresh guarantee. Ooh, that's tasty. Go all Aldi while stocks last.
Welcome back to hour 2 of the 9 till noon show this morning. Caller says, with regards to the A5, the main problem is speed. I never hear politicians talking about speed on this road. I drive this road 5 times a week. The most dangerous time of the morning is 5 a.m. and 8:30 as everyone speeds. Drivers are reckless. Sinn Féin did so well in Donegal because they haven't messed up County Donegal like they did with the rest of the country. The 100% Redress Party will run a candidate in the next general election and they will get a TD elected to the Dáil. So suggests one of our callers. Airbnbs. Caller says, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, there were B&Bs right throughout rural Ireland. Regulations have killed the industry. You'd have to spend thousands on your house to be compliant with regulations. Airbnb is going to go the same route. Now, it was self-catering accommodations that's the specific focus of Moira that we were speaking to there before the break, and the point that she was making was that yes, they do want to comply with regulations, but one of the questions is Airbnb is unregulated, it seems, at this moment. So, I mean, the whole issue of do you regulate and how do you regulate Airbnb is a major issue, and that's going to have to be addressed, one would think, by governments in years to come. Now, it seems when you look at Donald Trump that Donald fights with pretty much everybody, and now it's Donald Trump versus Taylor Swift. Now, I don't know. If you were seeking political office and you were hoping to get a lot of young people voting for you, would you start going after Taylor Swift? I certainly wouldn't, particularly given that Taylor Swift is one of the most articulate, independent and intelligent people in the music industry. But apparently Taylor Swift is a fake liberal, and the embattled former president, and as he hopes himself future president, has suggested in a book that the singer's political views are just an act. In his book Apprentice in Wonderland, Trump says of Taylor Swift, she's legitimately liberal. It's not an act. It surprises me that a country star can be successful being liberal. Yeah, I'm not sure, Donald. I would be I'd be scaling back now, and I wouldn't be going too hard on Taylor, because if it comes to a Taylor Swift versus Donald Trump battle in the minds of young people, I suspect there's only going to be one winner. I won't tell you who I think it's going to be, but I'll just give you one hint. My daughter thinks she's a very good singer. We're going to go for the bingo numbers in just a moment. If you play Highland Radio, NCBI Radio Bingo, your numbers are coming up very shortly. So grab your books, grab your pens, and without further ado, we will hand you over to Cass.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
It's time for Vision Ireland Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Wednesday, the 12th of June. You're playing on the blue sheet. The reference number is S18. It's game number 24. The numbers are 7, 57, 11, 71, 69, 19, 68, 17, 54, and finally 45. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your Vision Ireland bingo information at highlandradio.com. Come along and join David James and the Highland Radio Outside broadcast team this Thursday from 2:30 for an unforgettable live event. We're celebrating in style at Kernan's Umla Carrigart and Mickey Joe's Butchers for their 2nd anniversary. Expect an afternoon packed with excitement, delicious food tasting sessions and giveaways. That's this Thursday at Kernan's Umla Carrigart and Mickey Joe's Butchers. See you there for the grand celebration.
Relax and sink into the comfort of a new sofa at Easy Living Furniture Sofa Sale. Luxurious designs, unbeatable prices and endless comfort await you. Sofa Sale now on at Easy Living Furniture, Crescent Link Retail Park, Derry, or shop online at easylivingfurniture.co.uk.
Easy Living Furniture. Luxury furnishings. Affordable luxury.
Hello, Declan Nerdy here. Looking forward to seeing all our dancing friends in the Plaza, Buncrana this Saturday night. Dancing 10 to 12. Admission €15. That's the Plaza, Buncrana.
The 9 till Noon Show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
And you're welcome back to the 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. Going to be talking golf in just a few moments. A very interesting and important event coming up over the next few days. It's happening up in Inishowen, as so much does in golf in Donegal. We'll be getting to that very shortly. First of all, though, I was intrigued by a story I read this morning in the Irish Daily Mail, written by Colin Fernandez, and it came via, I'm sure, their sister paper in the UK. It seems a manned mission to Mars will fail as astronauts will suffer kidney failure on the trip. Now, there's been a lot of talk about missions to Mars and getting people to Mars, and as we all know from the book and film starring Matt Damon, getting to Mars is one thing, getting back from Mars is something completely different altogether. But now it seems that astronauts could have a serious issue with their kidneys when they go to space, because a comprehensive review of the health impacts of space travel on the 24 astronauts who went to space has shown that many suffered changes to their kidneys. Most astronauts only spend between 6 and 12 days in space, but 8 years exposed to galactic radiation, the time it would take for a return trip to Mars, would result in painful kidney stones and might require dialysis. That's according to a study by University College London, according to scientists. The US space agency NASA and the electric car tycoon Elon Musk have both set manned missions to Mars as goals. However, they say unless new drugs to protect kidneys are developed, the health risk would jeopardise any future 106 million kilometre round trip, according to experts. Now let's get that into perspective in our heads, because getting to the moon, and they're talking about going back to the moon again in the next 2 years or so with men and women travelling. Getting to the moon takes 3 days there, maybe 2 days on, 3 days back, if that. Getting to Mars is going to be an 8-year round trip. So, number one, you're trying to get a crew together who are prepared to spend 4 years travelling. Now, we know from science fiction, and science fiction is wonderful, I love it. In science fiction, what happens is everyone gets put into special cryogenic booths. They're put into a deep sleep. They sleep for 3.5 years, and then they're woken up as they're about to arrive. One suspects in real life that's not going to happen because they're films, and it would certainly be a pressure on the health. And we're told that by NASA that the situation is that if we have people in space flights will cause several issues, including loss of bone mass, weakness of the heart and eyesight, and that problem with kidney stones. Many of the issues are believed to stem from this exposure to space radiation. And if it's serious after 3 days, what's it going to be like after more than 3 years? It ain't going to happen anytime soon, folks. Okay, I promised you a discussion on golf and interesting things happening in North Inishowen. And of course, when you speak about golf and North Inishowen, let's be honest, you're speaking about Ballyliffin. And John Farron is manager of Ballyliffin Golf Club. Delighted to say John joins us on Zoom. John, good morning.
Morning, Donal. How are you?
Very well indeed, thanks, John. Ballyliffin, a prestigious history of staging major tournaments. I say major with a small M, not a capital M. That's another story altogether. But in terms of what Ballyliffin has been hosting over the years, another big event taking place this coming weekend.
Yeah, probably the most prestigious event that can be staged on this side of the Atlantic, the Amateur Championship, an R&A run event. Some of the best amateurs in the world will be here starting tomorrow with practice for the pre-qualifying and culminating next Saturday with the final over 36 holes. So really looking forward to it, Donal, and hopefully the summer will arrive at some stage within the next couple of days.
And the reality is that we may, this weekend in Ballyliffin, see the Sergio Garcias, the Tiger Woods, the Colin Montgomerys of the future.
Absolutely. This is the creme de la creme of amateur golf throughout the world. Most of these guys are college players in America about to turn pro. So they're at the top of their game, and really they are the next tranche of Rory McIlroy's, etc. And some spectacular golf. In fact, the golf is probably of a standard that would be, equivalent to a European or a DP World Tour event, such as their skills and talent.
And as you said, the word is amateur, but people will well remember when Shane Lowry was an amateur and he set the world alight. Tiger Woods, when he was in his final year as an amateur, he was setting the world alight. So I'm sure there's going to be people taking part in that championship in Ballyliffin who are going to set the world alight again. And sometimes maybe in our own heads, when we think of amateur golf, we think of a bunch of lads going off for a weekend and playing a few rounds. This most certainly is not that.
No, these guys are more or less professional, really. They're full-time golfers, albeit that they may be at college in the States. They're generally speaking on college sponsorship, and really it's a route to the top of the tree in terms of the PGA Tour or the European DP World Tour. So this is professional golf, for want of a better word, on a mature scale.
What does it take to secure an event like this? Because it isn't that the organisers wake up someday and say, hang on, I saw a nice article in a magazine about some golf course in Donegal. Why don't we take a look at that? If only it were that simple, but I'm sure it's far from it.
No, it has been years in the making. It probably started with our staging of the
Irish
the boys home internationals way back in 2016, I think it was. In 2022, we staged the men's and women's home internationals here. Obviously, continuing to develop our relationship with the R&A and trying to secure bigger and better events each year. So we were delighted when they came to the table offering us the Amateur Championship, and we're delighted to have them here. They are the governing body of golf worldwide, and they run the Open Championship, which obviously is an aspiration that we would have, albeit that it will take considerable amount of work to get that over the line. But listen, if we can't dream, we'll never get there.
Well, I mean, you've got this coming up. You ran a very successful Irish Open some years ago that people still talk about, and you still see the signs welcoming you into Donegal when you cross the border from Northern Ireland. And let's talk about that cross-border aspect for a moment, because, I mean, you spoke about the Open. Now, the Open is one of the majors. Now, I mean, I jokingly made a major reference earlier, but I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Ballyliffin Golf Club in the not-too-distant future could be hosting a major.
Yeah, why not? That's why they've changed it from it was formerly called the British Open, but they've changed it now to just call it the Open. So it is open for the RNA to move it outside Britain, and obviously Portmarnock have put their hat in the ring. We too are very interested in having a discussion with the RNA, albeit that no formal discussions have taken place as yet. But we are building our reputation with them, and this week and next will be very important in terms of showcasing Ballyliffin and the region as to what we could do and potential of staging further bigger and better events, albeit that there's very few bigger than the Amateur Championship. But the likes of the Walker Cup and ultimately the Open would be things that we aspire to. And if you'd said to anyone in Donegal 10 years ago that the Irish Open was going to come to Ballyliffin, they probably would have laughed at you. And that's throughout the country. So, if we can't dream, we'll never get there. And certainly that's something that we will be trying to address with the RNA this week when they're visiting.
But you have proven time and again that Ballyliffin has risen to numerous challenges. And I mean, in a bid for the Open, especially if it were a straight fight between yourselves and Portmarnock. Now, obviously it isn't, and it's nowhere near that simple. But you do have that cross-border element. You do have the facility of being able to say, well, look, not only do we have all the accommodation and all the facilities around Inishowen, just look at our neighbours in Derry across the border. We can link in there. So, you still have that cross-border element. And that's something that the RNA might look, well on. Particularly as, if I'm correct, I mean, there have been some very successful stagings in places like Portrush, and they will know the Portrush area, they will know the northwest of Ireland well themselves already.
Oh, absolutely. Portrush is probably the most successful Open Championship of the modern era, and that was a big step for the RNA to take it back there after 50 odd years. So certainly they've seen the benefits of bringing major golf to this part of the world, where people are very enthusiastic about the game and it brings out the crowds. In terms of infrastructure, we're lucky in that we have parking facilities on site, or have access to parking facilities on site. So it's very simple infrastructurally to organise an event of massive scale, which the Open is probably 4 times the size of an Irish Open. So yeah, we'd have to tweak our arrangements for the Irish Open, but certainly I think it's achievable, and hopefully at some stage we will get into serious discussions about that.
Going back to the Amateur Championships taking place this weekend, I mean, I'm sure this means an awful lot to your entire membership and to the people of Ballyliffin, Clonmany and further afield, because you're going to need a huge amount of stewards, you're going to need a huge amount of caddies, you're going to need a huge amount of people working around the course and outside the course. And this is something, it's not going to happen in isolation. I'm sure this is something that's going to pull in the whole local community, and that community buy-in is going to be a vital part of what happens.
Oh, absolutely. Economically, we're estimating it'll be somewhere between 3.5 and 5 million injection into the local economy, staging the event, which is important for a rural tourism economy. Volunteering is a big part of it. We've over 140 volunteers on site for the whole week. It's free entry and free parking on site here. So we're hoping, if the weather is kind, we'll get the Northwest community out in force to support the event and witness some of the greatest golfers in the world, playing around the Donegal links of Ballyliffin. So yeah, it's a big one for the local community, and people are really looking forward to it, and the members are really cherishing showcasing once again the 2 courses here in Ballyliffin on the world stage. It will be going out live on Sky for the last 2 days. During the course of the week, the RNA will be putting out on their YouTube channel, which is important in terms of profiling the region and getting more tourism visitors coming to Ballyliffin, Donegal and the Northwest region in general.
And I'm sure your marketing people have been looking at the analysis since the Irish Open staging and other major events in terms of the impact it's having on bringing golf tourism to Ballyliffin. And I suppose if someone is going to come to play golf in Ballyliffin because they have seen it on Sky or ESPN or wherever they've seen it in the world that they watch, or YouTube, they may decide to come and play golf in Ballyliffin. But the great thing is, once they're in Ballyliffin, sure, look, we may as well go to, what's that Rossapennant place like? How about this, what's that, Murlock you call it, or Letterkenny, or what's it, Port Salon? That looks nice. I mean, I'm sure if people come over to play Ballyliffin, that's going to have a throw-on effect for the other courses around Donegal, and the whole of the county is going to benefit from what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. People don't come to Ireland to play one golf course or two golf courses. It's a part of, generally it's a week-long or 10-day break. So, Donegal is blessed with some of the best links courses in the world. And you've mentioned them there, Murva, Port Salon, Rossapennant. But there are others, Northwest and Dunfanaghy. We have a great breadth of and depth of quality there. And that's something that, we're keen to retain tourism spend within the Donegal economy, so that we're spreading that tourism impact throughout the county. And that is very true. Like, people come and they sort of frog hop around the county, and that's what it's all about. Making sure that they stay within the Donegal region and continue to spend their money in the various facilities, not just golf, but the other tourism attractions, the pubs, the restaurants, the hotels. And so everybody gets a spin out, and that helps the local economy and employment, obviously, and that keeps us all going here.
As you say, the preparatory work gets underway this week. We have qualifying getting underway this coming Friday, and then on the 17th and 18th there's stroke play, there's match day Wednesday to Friday, and then the final taking place on Saturday next, June 22nd. So, a very interesting 9-10 days ahead from your point of view and your team. The cream of amateur golf globally is going to be in Ballyliffin over the course of the next couple of days. And the word to be, and I have to say, I'm stunned you're telling us that it's free in and it's free parking. I mean, I know people went to a big garden festival in Dublin at the weekend and they were charged 10 or 15 quid to park. So you're effectively saying, come and see the best amateur golfers in the world and do it for free.
Yeah, and there are facilities on site. There's outside catering, bar, etc., and plenty of room to roam. With 2 golf courses in action for Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, 288 players out. There's plenty of golf to witness. That then is filtered down to 64 players into the match play stages on Glashidi links from Wednesday on, and it culminates with the 36-hole final on next Saturday, which will be, a feast for the senses.
John Farron, manager of Ballyliffin Golf Club, we wish you all the best. As you say, we will pray to the weather gods that they will look kindly on Ballyliffin and its environs for the coming days. May this be the success that Ballyliffin is well capable of delivering. We wish you and the team well, John, and may the golf be only mighty.
Thanks a million, Donal.
John Farron, thank you. That's John, the manager there of Ballyliffin Golf Club. And what's it they say? If you don't aim big, you don't get what you want. And fair play to Ballyliffin Golf Club and to John and his team. They aim big. And hey, the rewards are coming thick and fast. Who knows? The Open Championship, hey, it mightn't be too far away.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
For new perspectives and a fresh vision, join me, Greg Hughes, on the 9 till noon show every Thursday at 10:15 for your voice, your community.
With over 1,000 TFI Local Link door-to-door services nationwide, if you're on our route, we're on our way. To use the service, simply pre-book the day before you want to travel with your TFI Local Link office. To find out more about door-to-door services in your area, visit transportforireland.ie. We're Transport for Ireland. We're Transport for you.
Why leave the magic moments and great scenes you've captured sitting on your phone when you can have them printed at McGee's Chemist? Using McGee's website or one of their in-store kiosks, you just upload your photos, select the ones you want, and have them printed instantly within an hour, or use the 24-hour service. 35mm and film from disposable cameras also printed, and old photos can be digitally restored. Hold your memories in your hand with McGee's Chemist, Letterkenny.
Now at Platform 1, Heritage Week event registration.
Are you taking that? I'm on it every year.
Am I not too late?
Don't worry, it's not leaving till August 17th.
So I still have time?
Loads.
But I'm not part of a heritage group.
You don't need to be. Anyone can register.
Great. I'd better get organised though. See you then.
Heritage connects us all. Time to get on board at heritageweek.ie.
National Heritage Week is a programme of the Heritage Council, supported by the local authorities' heritage teams and the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage.
Make Father's Day simply better and celebrate Dad with a feast. Fire up the barbecue for chicken wings, Irish Angus beef burgers and award-winning Irish Angus steaks. Or choose from a delicious range of antipasti favourites. Save 20% on Simply Better wines from around the world and finish with a selection of Italian-made gelato. Plus, you can save at the till with a 10 off 50 grocery voucher. Dunn Stores, always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used on next grocery shop of €50 or more. Voucher excludes alcohol. Please drink sensibly.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. If you want to give us your views on the issues of the day or lay out a subject you'd like to hear discussed on the show, you can text us or WhatsApp us on 086 60 25,000. You can call us on 07491 25,000, 003537491 25,000 if you're outside of the dialing area, or you can make contact electronically, comments at Highland Radio on email, at Highland Radio on X, Highland Hub on Facebook. We're also on other social media channels, and you can watch us on Facebook on both the Highland Radio and Highland Radio News and Sport pages, and you can watch us on our YouTube channel, Highland Radio Ireland, and the programme going out live there. And a very good morning to Sarah, one of the people who was watching us on our live stream this morning. Now, let's talk about the Ombudsman's report, which has been published today. Hospitals, social welfare and education schemes contribute to a rise of complaints to the Ombudsman, and a number of those complaints have come from Donegal. Ombudsman Ger Deering's annual report highlights a continuing rise in complaints. There were 3,418 in 2020. In 2023, that had risen to 4,465. And the Ombudsman, Ger Deering, joins us on the line. Ger, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Donald.
I'm sure it's a very busy day for you when this report is released, because you're going to have journalists like myself ringing you all day, radio programmes, TV programmes, others looking for the local skinny, looking for the local quotes. As you look at the figures, are you surprised that you've seen that level of increase since 2020?
I'm not really surprised, Donald, and you're correct in saying that this is a busy day, but we've engaged quite a bit recently with people like yourselves. This is not the first time I've been on Highland Radio, and I think, you know, by working with people like yourself and also community groups and interest groups across the country, we're trying to create a greater awareness of the office. So I think there's two things happening really. One is, I hope and believe there's a better awareness that what we do and how people can make a complaint. But of course there's a huge increase in the public services that are being provided and the people who are accessing public services. And if you think of the literally millions of transactions a year that happen right across the public sector, it's not surprising in a way that there would be more complaints. But I suppose the key message we want to get across is the importance of complaining when things do go wrong, if people are unhappy, because you can see from today's report that it doesn't just benefit the person who makes the complaint, it can have a significant benefit for other people in terms of increasing the quality of public services generally.
And presumably as well, it makes, if there is an issue with a public service, if a complaint is made, if that complaint is addressed and the protocols are put in place within that public service, as you said, that it benefits other users of that service, and presumably it actually benefits that service and its employees and its team as well, because it's going to make life easier for them, because they're going to be able to offer a better service to their service users going into the future. One of the points that's been raised, particularly in Donegal, it seems, looking very briefly at the report, is cross-border treatment schemes. Now, coincidentally, we had a discussion on this on the programme yesterday in a different context, and I just want to make sure that people know this is not linked to the discussion we had yesterday. That was a slightly separate issue, so I'm just going to park what we were talking about yesterday. And I want to talk to you about these cross-border treatment schemes, because whatever about someone in Galway or Killarney or Ringaskiddy or Dungarvan being able to access treatment in Northern Ireland, from Letterkenny it's a 40-minute drive to Kingsbridge in Ballykelly, and it's a facility used a lot in Donegal, but it's not been a facility that's been without its problems.
Well, the schemes themselves did run into some difficulty, and we were receiving complaints about cross-border schemes. And as you say, they're particularly relevant to those of you who live closer to the border. But it was an issue for people right throughout the country, and indeed not just accessing services in Northern Ireland, but in other jurisdictions as well. So what we found was that the schemes were really being overly bureaucratically administered. So, for example, somebody in Donegal might access cataract surgery somewhere in Northern Ireland, and they may have a very good neighbour, friend, son, daughter, whoever, who kindly would have brought them to that surgery. And at one stage, the HSE was looking for proof of travel. Now, if you have a good neighbour who kindly brings you there, they're not going to ask you for the money usually for the diesel or the petrol, or produce a receipt to you for the diesel or the petrol. So these kind of practicalities. But there were even more difficult issues arising. For example, if a referral letter wasn't properly signed, or if, depending on where the source of the money came from, people were finding that they went, had the surgery done in good faith, resolved their health issue, but then unfortunately ended up in debt for one reason or another to, maybe a family member or a credit union, because by their nature these schemes help people who don't have private health insurance. If you had private health insurance, there's a very good chance you might access the treatment in the South or in the Republic without the need to travel. So we did an investigation into these schemes and we found these over-bureaucratic practices. But I'm very happy to say it's a really good example of what you were talking about earlier, how the system can improve for everybody, for the staff of the HSE, most importantly, for the patients accessing it, but absolutely for everybody, because there's a win-win here. If more people, they're very good schemes in themselves, by the way, and the vast majority of people didn't have a difficulty. So if more people are accessing these, they're coming off long waiting lists in the Republic, and that system is benefiting as well. So I made 21 recommendations to Bernard Gloucester, the CEO of the HSE, and I'm very happy to say that the HSE is implementing those very much in the spirit that we would have wanted. And now, not alone have quite a number of people who were refused refunds, got those refunds back. And I hear it, you hear the actual stories of the person who borrowed 11,000 from her sister to have her hip replaced. You can imagine how she felt when she wasn't able to get that money afterwards. But those people have been reimbursed now. But equally importantly, or very importantly, the schemes now are administered in a much better way. And people find that they're able to access them and don't have the difficulties that we're running into before.
In terms of those schemes, one of the things that may have caused confusion, particularly at the start of them, is that there previously was the National Treatment Purchase Fund, whereby people on the hospital waiting list would be referred either to somewhere like Ballykelly or indeed either to the Galway Clinic or the Mater or wherever to have the surgery done. And that was a referral within the HSE. They went there, they got the treatment, no money changed hands, they weren't out of pocket. And people may have engaged with the cross-border treatment scheme. I can't remember its precise name right now. I think it was the European cross-border treatment scheme or whatever it was called. But under that one, as you've said, people paid, got the treatment, paid up front, and then claimed the money back from the HSE. What was there confusion in the early stages of that second scheme, where people thought it was like the NTPF, where they didn't lay out any money, and then suddenly found themselves facing bills they didn't anticipate?
That may have been an issue, but in fact there are three, apart from the National Treatment Purchase, which, as you rightly say, Donal, is completely separate to this. There were actually three schemes. There were two cross-border schemes, and then there was a very specific UK-Irish scheme put in place when Brexit happened. But effectively it operated like the EU cross-border scheme. And in some of those schemes, in one of those schemes, what would happen is you would get approval in advance, and in fact everything would be paid. The treatment would be paid. So you would access it a bit like the Treatment Purchase Fund as you described it. But then there was the other schemes where you didn't need advance sanction. You went and had the treatment done, but there were very specific criteria. For example, you had to have a referral, as you could imagine. And we accept most of the criteria that was in the scheme. You had to have a referral letter from a GP or a consultant, depending on the scheme it was. But one of the difficulties was, doctors are busy people, and sometimes somebody else would actually sign the referral letter. So the doctor's secretary maybe would sign it on his or her behalf. The HSE didn't accept that, even in circumstances where the person went back and got a letter from the doctor to confirm this was actually the referral. So in another case, we had a woman who she obviously wasn't in a position to pay, but her sister travelled with her, and her sister paid for the treatment, but the scheme said you must pay for the treatment, and bureaucracy decided, well, you is not your sister, and those are the kind of problems. So really, the vast majority of problems were not problems of the making of the patient. The patient had the work, had the surgery done or had the treatment done in good faith and expected to receive payment when they come back, but didn't. But I do want to stress and remind people that they're very good schemes and they are operating very well now.
And the issues tend to be unwieldy bureaucracy rather than any kind of malpractice or malice. That sometimes the biggest issue is that it's just a big, huge, unwieldy bureaucratic system. It isn't that someone is doing wrong or that there is malpractice in here, and that's the problem. The biggest issue here isn't people. The biggest here sometimes is just the system.
That's an important point. I mean, technically the scheme was being correctly run, as in the doctor should have signed the letter, the person should have paid for the treatment. But, you can't operate, the world doesn't operate like that. You need a little bit of empathy and a little bit of discretion and flexibility in these kind of schemes.
A caller is asking, I'm not happy with a special needs service that a child was in. Can I contact you to make a complaint?
Yes, they can contact us. And we'd encourage anybody, wherever there's a doubt. I mean, the service must be a publicly funded service, but it's always best that people would contact us and check. And if for any reason we can't deal with it, now that person I think has mentioned that it's a child, so there is the Children's Ombudsman. However, if it was the case, we would talk to the person. If we believed it was for the Children's Ombudsman or some other organisation, we would refer it on. But I would urge them to contact us for sure and give us the details, and we can check it out for them.
Obviously, housing is a huge point of discussion right across the board, locally and nationally. And perhaps not surprisingly, housing-related complaints have made up the majority of complaints when it comes to complaints about local councils.
Yes, that's true. Now, again, we won't be able to produce houses for people, and I'm sure people understand that when they come to us. But in all complaints that we deal with, Donal, we take a human rights-based approach. And by that we mean we look at how are people treated? Were they treated with respect and dignity in their dealings with the local authority? And there's a case study in our annual report this year to do with housing, and it was very much that point that obviously the housing or lack of housing was a key issue, but actually what was equally as important was that the people were not treated with respect and dignity by the local authority in the communications that they had. So, again, we look at things like HAP. We're actually undertaking an investigation into HAP because we have received a number of complaints about its operation. So we look at the operation of these things, the schemes and the housing applicants. One that comes to mind in terms of housing, I remember a family where all housing applicants are written to every so often to confirm that there's still housing need, so that the local authority can update its lists. But I know in Galway County Council on one occasion they wrote to all of the people concerned. They didn't receive a response from one particular family. It was a traveller family who, there may have been issues in terms of mobility or indeed communication itself. But because they didn't receive the response by the due date, they took the family off the housing list. We engaged, they put the family back on the housing list, but they put them back from today's date. Now, the family had actually been 12 years on the housing list. Yeah. So to lose that 12 years would have been, just a punishment, a penal for inadvertently not replying to a letter. So we got them reinstated on the housing list from 12 years. So those are the kind of issues we can deal with in terms of housing.
And again, what was probably happening in this instance too, particularly when they were added back on the list, is the person who added them back filled in the form absolutely correctly. And sometimes the filling in of the form correctly is more important in people's eyes than perhaps actually looking humanly at the situation. An interesting question has come into us here, and I'm going to put this to you. You'll be aware, I'm sure, that there is a major defective blocks crisis in Donegal. Now, it's in the private sector in as much as it's houses that were built by building contractors using blocks that were sourced from private suppliers, and there were considerable issues with the blocks which are now having a huge effect on houses and families locally. However, a caller says, I know that a lot of the defective block crisis in Donegal is based on the private sector, but the failure is at its root a failure of government to apply building regulations and to allow a situation develop where defects in blocks came through because the regulations that should have determined them were not followed through by government and there weren't proper inspections. Is there any competence for your office to look at that in terms of that a government failure on one level led to problems which are on the face of it in the private sector?
We can look at systemic issues, and we do from time to time carry out what we call own initiative investigations. However, I wouldn't see us getting involved in the as you rightly point out, the private side of that. There were private transactions between individuals and builders. However, I know we're all aware that there is a redress scheme in place, and while we wouldn't second guess the redress that somebody would be offered, we would possibly be able to look at how they were treated if there were any difficulties in accessing the scheme, or in how they were dealt with as part of that. But in terms of the actual, if you want to call it the original fault, it isn't something that our office could become involved in.
And would you have any competence in assessing the appropriateness of the scheme, or whether the scheme should be different, or do you have to take the scheme as it legally stands and work just within the parameter of that?
We would take the scheme as it legally stands. So our role would really be, I suppose the treatment abroad scheme is a very good example. We didn't change any of the criteria that existed in the scheme, but what we were able to look at was how is that actually being interpreted and administered. So it's that area that we can bring our expertise and our investigation to.
Let's look at one of the, I suspect, major success stories for your office. You say there is a significant fall-off in complaints about the passport service. Now, we know years back the passport service would have been notorious. It seems to have got a lot better, and I've no doubt part of that is down to the fact that you would have investigated quite a number of complaints over the years.
Yes, well, particularly in 2022, and in fact it featured in our annual report, I think we had about 800 complaints against the Passport Office. There was accumulation of things that happened there. We had Brexit, we had COVID, we had a whole range of things. But one thing that comes to mind, for example, at that stage when we were looking at it, we found that the complaint system which the Passport Office had at that particular time was a written one. So, if you were living in wherever abroad, you had to write to the Passport Office if you had a difficulty. They had an online application system, but yet their complaint system was a postal-based system. And indeed, there are many countries that people might live in who would need to interact with the Passport Office that would hardly have a postal system, or a very poor postal system. So one of the things we've that they've done at our request and recommendation has been to bring that complaint system online. And a complaint system is a really important tool for any organisation. Any organisation that tries to limit complaints or that ignores complaints really is missing out on a very valuable tool for assessing its own service. I think public bodies and everybody should actually consider complaints to be very important feedback and learn from those complaints. Not all complaints will be upheld. Some people might have unreasonable expectations, but very many of the complaints point up issues that sometimes are systemic, or sometimes are just about an individual who could do better in their job, or the organisation has been doing something the same way for 20 years and nobody has actually queried, well, really, do we need to do that, and do we need all of that?
Ombudsman Ger Deering, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. Just one final question, Ger. Can people access this report online? I presume at this point it's available for anyone to peruse?
Absolutely. It's up on our website, and I would encourage people, ombudsman.ie, I'd encourage people to go there and have a look and see, particularly the case studies, give people a really good example or a understanding of, I hope, what we do.
Ger Deering, thank you very much indeed. That's Ger Deering there, the Ombudsman. Now, we're going to change tack completely. As you will know, Leaving Cert students are sitting their exams this week. They began last week. But there is a suggestion that perhaps the Leaving Cert should be abolished in favour of an open access policy for our universities. That's being pushed by People Before Profit. Delighted to say we're joined online by Deputy Paul Murphy of People Before Profit. Paul, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me on.
Paul, it's an interesting concept. I sat through the Leaving Cert 40 plus years ago. You sat through the Leaving Cert a damn sight more recently, I fear. And thousands of people listening to this show have sat through the Leaving Cert. And it's not perfect, but it's a springboard and it's a way of preparing people for college. That's the theory. You believe there is an alternative.
I do, yeah. I mean, I think there's two reasons we should scrap the Leaving Cert. One is the enormous stress that it places on people. 3/4 of young people say they feel extreme stress as a result of doing it. And again, most of your listeners will know that feeling of how much stress, how much pressure is placed on these couple of weeks of exams. My heart goes out to any young people who are doing it at the moment. It contributes to mental health crisis that exists in our society. And the second reason is that I think it crystallizes the inequality that exists in our society and in our education system. And there's a huge class bias baked into the nature of the Leaving Cert, where, for example, if you live in an affluent area, you are 10 times more likely to get higher points out of the Leaving Cert than if you live in a deprived area. And it isn't because people who live in affluent areas are any smarter than people who live in deprived areas. It's because of a whole range of factors, including access to grind schools, access to grinds, access to like space to study, having parents maybe who went to university. And so it crystallizes this disadvantage, this inequality, to the disadvantage of working class young people. And I think to the disadvantage of our society, because there's loads of people out there who would make excellent doctors or lawyers or lecturers or nurses or scientists or whatever, who don't get that chance to contribute in that way to our society because of the kind of inequality that is then reflected in people's Leaving Cert results.
How then do you regulate how people take places for limited courses in university? I mean, we do know that one of the reasons for the point system, and the point system is an extremely blunt instrument, but we do know that the number of medical places, the number of dental places, the number of actuary places, veterinary places and so on are extremely limited. If you don't have a point system based on the Leaving Cert to limit the how you get people in there, what do you use in its place as an admission criteria?
Yeah, I think that's the essential question, because the point system comes from a place of scarcity. We have scarce places in third level education and more people chasing those places. So just what that difference is, right, is about 25,000 places a year. So about 80,000 people apply for third level places a year through the CAO, and about 55,000 of them get a place in third level. So it's not massive, but it's there. But the way you do it is, one, investment in more places in third level education. So 50 years ago, there used to be a thing called the primary certificate, which people would do at the end of primary school, and which they'd have to do well in order to get into secondary school. So the assumption was that for working class young people then, is your education is finishing at the end of primary school. That's no longer the case, and we take it for granted that everyone goes on to second level education, and the vast majority of people now go all the way through second level education. And so similarly, we can say that there will be a place, we invest in it, it costs €500 million. It's the same amount of money that the state is planning to increase spending on military hardware over the coming years, that we invest to say that there will be a place in college for everybody who wants it. And then what that looks like is similar to the system in France or in Italy, where everyone who finishes secondary school can go on to third level education. And it probably means starting with, for most people, kind of an omnibus, what they call an omnibus entry. So, for example, you want to finish up doing medicine, you'd start doing a year of science. And at the end of doing science, you would do exams which actually relate to science, as opposed to the exams that you do in your Leaving Cert, many of which don't really relate to whether you'll be a good doctor or not. And on that basis, then the more limited places in medicine or whatever would be allocated out.
The question then becomes, if you have a situation where you've abolished the Leaving Cert, you've based, if there is to be a measure of success through the second level system, you base it on in-class assessments, you base it on essays, you base it on projects, you base it on whatever. It's still going to get to a point where at some stage in college, someone is going to have to sit down and do an exam. And if they haven't had the preparation of the Junior Cert and the Leaving Cert, blunt though that may be, scary though that may be, will the exam they now face in the first year in college be an even more daunting prospect?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I think for most of us, like the most daunting, most stressful exam that we ever did was the Leaving Cert. It isn't matched by what you go on to do in college.
I have to agree there. I do have to agree there, yes.
So you know, I'm not saying that you wouldn't have exams, you wouldn't have homework, you wouldn't have, tests and so on through school, as you do currently in years other than sixth year. So you would continue to have those, people would continue to do it, but you would avoid this massive stress and this massive pressure of cramming, you know? I mean, I tell you, I'm pretty good at memorizing things for like a number of days. So the Leaving Cert suited me. I could memorize all the stuff in a couple of days before the exam and remember it all. It doesn't mean I knew it 2 weeks later than that. It didn't really mean that I was going to be good at whatever on in life. You know, it isn't really a very good test of whether you'll be a good whatever. And I think exams in college, as well as the kind of continuous assessment that goes on in college, are a better test of that. I also think it's important to say, by the way, I'm not saying that third level education is for everybody. There's lots of other ways that people contribute to society. I think we need to massively expand apprenticeships, for example. But I am saying that we shouldn't restrict access and say, no, you haven't done good enough in your Leaving Cert. Because effectively, this isn't a meritocracy. It's like a 100-meter race where some people are starting 50 meters down or 75 meters down. We aren't all starting from equal places because of the inequality that exists in our society. And there isn't a need to do that. Like, it is a choice to have artificial scarcity of third-level education places, and we can do away with that.
Can I ask you a blunt question? Is it your belief that we have lost potentially brilliant surgeons, we've lost potentially brilliant vets because they were born in Ballymun rather than Dalkey?
Definitely. There's a quote, I can't remember exactly who said it. Someone said they were asked about like Einstein's brain and how great Einstein's brain was, and they said, I'm less concerned about the precise measurements of Einstein's brain than I am about the fact that there are, thousands, tens of thousands, whatever, of potential Einsteins out there that we never got the benefit from. And I do think this is about those individuals who are prevented from reaching their full capacity, but also about society losing out. And I think when you go back to it, again, can you justify a situation where if you're from an affluent area or you go to a school in an affluent area, you're 10 times more likely to get high points in the Leaving Cert? And, I'm sure everyone agrees that those people in affluent areas are no smarter or less smart than people in deprived areas. And it does indicate that we as a society are hugely missing out on a whole bunch of talents that we should instead allow to flourish. And I think in the end will benefit our society, will not be a cost to our society, but would ultimately be a benefit.
Deputy Paul Murphy, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thanks a lot.
That's Deputy Paul Murphy there, People Before Profit, a member of Dáil Éireann. An interesting concept, and yep, I do have to agree. I would say the single stressful most period of exams I ever did was my Leaving Cert, way back in 1981. And yeah, it was a fairly scary time. Okay, we're getting fairly close to the 11 o'clock headlines. We have a weather forecast to come as well. So we're going to take a very short break, and Donna Marie will be in studio with us in just a few moments.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
The Pastoral Centre Counselling Service are recruiting for a Director of Counselling and a Coordinator of Counselling based in Letterkenny. This is an exciting opportunity to join a growing team with excellent salary options for the right candidate. To apply, send a cover letter and CV to office.tcps@gmail.com by Friday 21st of June.
We move Ireland's energy through one of Europe's most modern gas networks, delivering the energy you need today throughout the country. And now we're moving Ireland's energy in a new way, bringing more sustainable sources into the pipeline. Gas Networks Ireland, moving Ireland's energy.
Imagine a dream wedding on a lake, all-day casual dining by a magical shore, fine dining or glorious afternoon tea surrounded by beautiful mountains, or a fabulous bar filled with music, laughter and song. Imagine no more. Harvey's Point, Loch Esk, Donegal, 07497222208 or harveyspoint.com. Close by, but a different world.
Apply online for learner permit and driving licence services, including renewals, updates, exchanges and replacements. It's easy and hassle-free. Visit NDLS online today at ndls.rsa.ie. Verified MyGov ID required. A message from the Road Safety Authority.
Donegal County Council, in association with Bryson Recycling, are holding a half-price bulky goods event at Stranorlar, Lahey and Dunlow Recycling Centres from the 10th of June until the 22nd of June, during site opening times. For more information and opening times, visit donegalcoco.ie or call the council on 074 9153 900.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by McElhenny's. Support a local Donegal business with McElhenny's. From fashion to home essentials, find everything you need for any occasion. Shop McElhenney's Ballybuffet for quality you can trust.
And Met Éireann tell us it'll be a dry day with a mix of cloud and sunny spells. Top temperatures 14 to 16 degrees Celsius in light westerly or variable winds backing southwest by this afternoon. Tonight dry for much of the night. Clear spells to start, but it will become overcast as the night goes on. Rain and drizzle will develop in Donegal around dawn. Lowest overnight temperatures 8 to 10. Moderate southerly winds, and I'm afraid that rain that develops in Donegal toward dawn is set to continue for a bit. Wet and overcast tomorrow morning and into the afternoon. That rain will become widespread, slowly clearing northeastwards through the evening with scattered showers following from the west, but the rain will linger in northeastern parts until nightfall. Breezy tomorrow in moderate to fresh southerly winds. They'll veer westerly and ease once the rain clears. Top temperatures on Thursday of 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. Time now for news headlines, and we say a very good morning to Donna Marie Doherty.
Thanks, Donal. Good morning. 2 people have been arrested in Meath and Donegal in connection with the murder of a police officer in the north and then the attempted murder of a second in the 1970s. RUC Constable Robert John McPherson was killed after being called to reports of suspicious activity at a post office in Dungiven in County Derry in July of 1975. PSNI say Gardaí arrested 2 men aged 73 and 72 at addresses Meath and Donegal who are due to appear before the High Court in Dublin today. A third man aged 71 was detained by PSNI in Dungiven. A Donegal deputy says Sinn Féin is not out of the race for a seat in the Midlands North West constituency. The party's fisheries spokesperson Padraig McLaughlin says the final seat will be a fight between their own Michelle Gildernew and independent Ciarán Mullally. The count continues today in Castlebar. While no one has yet been elected, Luke Ming Flanagan, Nina Carberry, Barry Cowan and Maria Walsh all look now certain to take the first 4 seats. Detectives from the Terrorism Investigation Unit have made an arrest in Strabane as part of an investigation into dissident Republican activity. A 48-year-old man was arrested under the Terrorism Act yesterday evening and taken to Musgrave's Serious Crime Suite where he's being questioned. A vehicle was also seized. The public have been left shocked after learning that 3 kittens were put into a closed bag and abandoned in Letterkenny. They were found behind a bar on Friday last. The 3 black kittens, who are all male, are believed to be around 10 weeks old and they're now in the care of Animal in Need Donegal. Aer Lingus could be grounded within weeks as pilots look set to strike. Talks between both sides in the dispute broke down yesterday without agreement. The result of a strike ballot is due shortly. And finally, agricultural runoff and poorly treated human sewage are the main reasons there's no improvement in Ireland's water quality. A new report from the EPA found while there were improvements in some areas last year, they were offset with falling standards in others. That's all for now. We'll be back with more at 12 o'clock.
Thank you very much indeed, Donna Marie.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Introducing SuperValue's new Real Rewards prices. Scan your card or app and get Kellogg's Crunchy Nut 1 kilo was €7.25, now €5. And Surf Tropical Lily and Coconut Bliss Liquid 44 wash was $10.25, now €7. Plus, save even more with weekly vouchers on the Real Rewards app. Make real savings every week at SuperValue.
Because your no claims bonus matters to you, it matters to us. That's why all AXA car insurance policies include accident forgiveness as standard. So you'll never lose all of your no claims bonus if you have an accident or a claim is made against you. Get a quote today at axa.ie. AXA. Know you can. Policy terms and conditions apply. Accident forgiveness is step back. No claims discount protection for customers with 4 or more years no claims discount. AXA Insurance DAC is authorised and regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Discover the ultimate gastropub experience at Sister Sarah's in Letterkenny. Treat yourself to their irresistible menu featuring grill night on Thursdays and Sarah's all-new barbecue Fridays. Plus, enjoy live sports daily, live music on weekends and private function rooms for your special occasions. Sister Sarah's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love from Wednesday through to Sunday.
Hi, Paddy here at Shane Conley Cars in Donegal Town. Are you looking to upgrade your car? With Shane Conley Cars, you'll find makes and models for every budget. Great finance options, and we also accept trade-ins. Check out shaneconleycars.com or call in to us at Shane Conley Cars from Lonaher Road, Donegal Town.
A trek through time at Donegal County Museum. Visit this colourful exhibition that showcases the collection of the Donegal County Archives. Through the themes of arts, Donegal Grand Jury, the railways of County Donegal, schools and schooling, the Joseph Murray Collection, the workhouses of Donegal, the GAA, exotic and eccentric Donegal, immigration maps, elections and the electorate, ladies of Donegal. Donegal County Museum is located on the High Road in Letterkenny and admission is free. Telephone 074 912 4613. Email museum@donegalcoco.ie or find us on social media. Donegal County Council, serving the people and preserving the heritage of Donegal.
An rá is agat go raibh droch humor. Imní. Vibe cuddalta. Agus stras. Mar chuid de bheabhar láinse. Cóhairtí a déadach a bheith níos deachra a ahans an at féin. Chun tacaíocht farsanta a áil a déadach chaurú leat. Ban úsáid as an Eirlis má phlean meabhar láinse. Ag yourmentalhealth.ie ón HSE.
It's the third and final hour of the 9 till noon show, and you're very welcome back. It's time for our Wellness Wednesday feature. And as part of Wellness Wednesday, this morning we're speaking to Dr. Sheila Gilhinny, who is the CEO of Alcohol Action Ireland. And Sheila joins us on Zoom. And Sheila, you are very welcome indeed to the programme this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Donal. Very pleased to be on.
This is Men's Health Week, and Alcohol Action Ireland are urging men to know their numbers around alcohol. The Know Your Numbers campaign, it was quite big many years ago. The sort of focus went off it a bit. Is this a focus we need to sort of re-look at?
Actually, the whole of the Men's Week campaign has been about numbers and different aspects to that. And one of the things that we have been looking at in particular is a number which the HSE would say. So this is the number for what they would call the low risk drinking guidelines, and they would say that men should have no more than 17 standard drinks in a week and should allow 2 or 3 days that would be absolutely alcohol free. And that's a lower risk drink guideline. It's not saying that there's no risk, it's just saying it's a lower risk. And what they mean by a standard drink is a half pint of beer, or a pub measure of spirits, or a small glass of wine, say about 100 millilitres. So, 17 standard drinks in a week, it actually adds up quite quickly if you think that really a pint is 2 standard drinks straight away. So, but those are important numbers, to have, because like we live in a society it's very alcocentric, like a lot of us who drink would do so in ways that are actually very risky and indeed, and we know we have some other kind of scary numbers out there where we actually have high levels of binge drinking. We're the 8th highest in the OECD countries for binge drinking. So this campaign this week, as part of Men's Health, is kind of asking people to sort of step back a little bit and take a check on where you might be at in relation to alcohol, because it's a feature of our health. It's, drinking really does impact our health, whether we're talking about physical health in terms of things like liver disease, heart disease, cancer, or whether we're talking about, our mental health. It actually has a huge impact. Alcohol would have a massive impact on our mental health. So we could be talking about depression, anxiety. A lot of men don't necessarily use those words, but would know themselves that they're maybe not feeling the best in themselves. And alcohol, and looking at your alcohol intake, actually could be do something there just to help improve matters.
The council one is an interesting one in to the extent that we know, say, tobacco is a carcinogen, and there's been a very, very successful campaign over years highlighting and stressing the carcinogenic impact of tobacco, and tobacco has become, by and large, eschewed by society, and it's become something of a taboo, and its use has reduced dramatically in recent years because of that awareness of it being a carcinogen. I suspect if you asked a sample 100 people, is alcohol a carcinogen? If you asked them that distinct, direct question, I'm not sure how many people would say yes.
Well, in fact, actually, there has been surveys done on this, and it's about 20% of people would know that it is a carcinogen. It's actually in the same, it's what they call a class 1 carcinogen. It's in the same category as tobacco or asbestos. And there is actually legislation coming that'll put a label on every alcohol product sold, which will actually give you that information that it is a carcinogen, because precisely that, we don't really know it. We do know that there are about 1,000 cases of cancer that are diagnosed every year that are directly related to alcohol. And about 2/3 of those would actually occur in men. So it's a thing just to be aware of, and to kind of, you can really improve your health. And for a lot of people, part of their health is actually taking steps so that they don't get sick in the first place. It's not about actually, oh, you're sick, now do this. This is about actually trying to keep you healthy in the first place. So a lot of people would have concerns about cancer. They have concerns about heart disease. That have, concerns about their mental health. And a big step towards improving all of those, or reducing the worries about that, is to reduce alcohol use.
One of the interesting figures that's published in conjunction with Men's Health Week and the focus on alcohol is that alcohol is a causal factor in more than 200 disease and injury conditions, according to the World Health Organization. Now, people will say, yeah, alcohol is a causal factor, but there's many other causal factors and it's not the main causal factor. However, just underneath is one that I have to say jumped up at me, that says in 2021, the most recent statistics available, 18,877 people were hospitalised in Ireland due to wholly alcohol-related conditions. Now, I presume that would encroach into things like assaults and public order and things like that would have an alcohol sort of raison d'etre behind them, as well as weekends and so on. And we know that our emergency departments can be absolutely crowded with the impact of alcohol-fueled incidents. Or are you saying that's just disease? That's
actually,
not taking into effect
that figure, nearly 19,000, is actually illnesses. It's not.
So that's not taking into effect an emergency department on a Saturday night.
Like the falls or assaults or things like that. So that's separate again. Actually, in EDs, you'd find about upwards of about 1/3 of ED presentations at weekends would be related to alcohol. So we already know that there is a heavy burden there, but that 19,000 figure is actually to do with illnesses, liver disease being unfortunately a large one there. That impacts very severely on men's health.
There's been a clear drive to try to highlight this, and part of it started, and let's maybe blow our own trumpet a bit. Part of it started up here with the Northwest Alcohol Forum some years ago, that maybe was blazing the trail to a certain extent for some of the work that's being done now. People like Dennis Bradley and others who were involved in that way back, and that started 10, 12 years ago, if not more. But since then, is there any evidence that the message is getting through? Is there any evidence that the alcohol-related harm message is actually being absorbed, and we're seeing any of these figures actually fall?
Well, one of the things that actually it really does hearten me is that we can see that actually the level of consumption of alcohol has fallen. So it's gone down by about 10% since 2018. That was so 2018 was the year when the Public Health Alcohol Act was passed, and it has a whole series of measures that includes things like minimum pricing, restrictions in advertising, things like putting alcohol in supermarkets in a specific location, and in structural separation. All small steps, none of them actually earth-shattering, but it is good to see that there has been an improvement, say a 10% drop in alcohol consumption, and we do see some improvements. So even though those numbers for attending hospital and there are very high, actually, as a proportion of the population, it has been reducing slightly. So there's a little bit of an improvement, but there's a long way to go. So when I was saying there that we're drinking about 10% less than we were back in 2018, if we were all sticking to the HSE lower risk drinking guidelines, we'd actually we would be drinking 40% less than what we're currently drinking. So there's some progress, but there's still a long way to go on this.
I suspect a lot of people, when they talk about a unit of alcohol, would assume a unit of alcohol is a pint. So immediately you're effectively doubling what it is, because the unit is half a pint. I also strongly suspect that if someone pours themselves a glass of wine or a shot at home, it's going to be substantially larger than a standard pub measure.
Absolutely. It's funny actually, that particular thing about, a glass of wine being 100 milliliters. When you pour that out, a lot of people say that looks like an egg cup. Like it looks very small. And that's partly actually literally our wine glasses have turned into goblets. They're huge than where they were. If you go back and you look at, the size of wine glasses back in the 1950s, 60s, you were looking at, wedding gifts or whatever at that stage, you would see the wine glasses were much, much smaller at that time. So again, coming back to knowing your numbers, actually knowing the size of what a standard drink looks like, knowing the size of, say a measure of spirits, is a very important thing to do, because if you just free pour something out, sure, we're all the same. You just fill things up. You fill up, the glass to, to full, whereas that's maybe 2 or 3 measures perhaps are actually within it.
Maybe the big difference between alcohol and tobacco that we referenced earlier is that in the case of tobacco, the message is quite clear. Don't do it. Don't smoke. Don't consume tobacco in any way, shape or form, because if you do, you are in immediate danger of having your life altered and potentially prematurely ended. With alcohol, it's not quite so simple, because you're not saying don't do it. You're saying drink in moderation. You're saying be aware of your numbers. You're saying it's fine to have a drink every now and again, but just know what the limits are and realize that the limits are perhaps a lot more stringent than you might have thought. That gives you I won't say a difficulty, but it gives you a challenge in terms of trying to bring people to a point where they can accept the limitations and accept the boundaries as you would like them to be seen, because people in their own minds will have boundaries and say, oh no, I'm grand, I can do X, I can do Y, I can, as the old phrase used to be, he's a great fella, he can take his drink.
I think, realistically, nobody is saying prohibition, because prohibition, we know, it just simply doesn't work. But actually, over the last number of years, and the World Health Organization is very clear in this, they would say that there's no level of alcohol that is safe. So that's actually moving more towards what you would be saying, like about tobacco. They would say that there's literally no safe level of alcohol consumption. I think one of the other big differences between tobacco and alcohol in terms of our perception is that there's a complete ban on the marketing of the advertising of tobacco and cigarettes. We don't have that remotely for alcohol. So we absorb an awful lot of positive messages about alcohol from the huge level of marketing that we see. And that's both in direct advertisements on the TV, the radio, publications in your hand when you're on your phone, or when you go to, rugby matches or football that's been sponsored by alcohol. Message all the time that it's a risk-free thing to do, that there's no problem with it. It's all happy clappy and sure it's grand. And there's that very close association between health-giving things like sport, or, family orientation, things like being with friends and family and the good feelings that come with that. And then that making that association with alcohol at the same time. But I think if we were to ban alcohol advertising, strip out of it all the myths that we have at the moment, you would see the product and for what it actually is, in the same way as you're able to see that for tobacco. So tobacco back in the 1970s, about 50% of the population would have been smoking. That's down now to about 18% of the population. And again, you're not talking about prohibition. You're not saying that people can't do it. You're just making sure that people have the proper information, and that the proper controls around pricing, its availability and its marketing are actually in place from a public health perspective. We're a very, very long way off actually having something similar for alcohol. But increasingly, that's what we really need to be doing.
One of the interesting developments in recent years has been the growth in zero alcohol beers. And I find I will often, as my choice, well, obviously if I'm driving, it is my choice, but as my choice, I will go for the zero beer, and they've improved in terms of taste immensely, in my opinion, and obviously the opinion of others, because they're taking a bigger and bigger share of the market. Now, you have some concerns about that, because you fear that still, when people look at the branding and when people look at the bottles and when people look at, and now you'll find more and more the sport it's being sponsored by a beer brand, but it's the zero version of the beer. But you still believe people are looking at the brand name rather than necessarily the zero that's directly under it.
Yeah, I think that's actually very, very clear that alcohol companies are using these products to actually get around the very modest restrictions that there are on alcohol advertising at the moment. Just going back to the sport one, in that Public Health Alcohol Act, the original proposal was that there should be a complete ban on alcohol sports marketing. And what it actually came down to, what it was whittled down to, was that you couldn't advertise on the field of play. So you could sponsor it, you could have your Guinness Six Nations, you could have hoardings all around the stadium, saying Guinness, but on the grass, you couldn't advertise the product. So what we see instead is Guinness 0-0 at that particular point, and Guinness everywhere else. So you get this very seamless blend between Guinness and Guinness 0-0. But overwhelmingly, what you're actually seeing is the brand name, and it is interesting. And I do see that there has been an increase in the amount of these products that are out there, but they're still a very small proportion of the overall market. So last year, and this will be figures from the drinks industry themselves, zero alcohol products made up about 1.5% of the market. But in that outdoor space, where there are restrictions on alcohol advertising, like close to schools or on the field of play, things like that, the advertising there makes up 25% of the alcohol brand spend. So I think it's very clear what the industry are actually doing here is that they're using these products as a means of getting around. Now, if people want to drink them, absolutely, I have no problem at all with that. But I think we should be very cognizant that they are no ordinary product like their alcohol product. So, for example, they're not suitable for under 18s. They're not suitable for people in recovery, who would see them as actually their means of. There's a risk there that they push you towards, going back to alcohol. So they're certainly not a sparkling mineral water, is what I'm saying. And I think that needs to be very clear. And when it comes to restrictions on alcohol advertising, what needs to be restricted is an alcohol brand, the branding of it.
Caller says alcohol is a dangerous drug. It has a habit of creeping up on you and grabs a hold of you before you know it. Before you know it, you're in serious trouble. I've lost 2 siblings due to alcohol, and there was nothing we could do as a family. And I suppose that's the sort of message you get quite a lot.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the level of alcohol harm in this country is devastating. About 20% of the population, 20% of those who drink would have an alcohol use disorder. So that's actually across the whole of the population. That's about 600,000 people. About 90,000 would have a severe alcohol use disorder. 4 people die every day from alcohol. 4 people every single day. We talk about deaths on the road, and we're rightly very exercised about that, and indeed alcohol has a role there as well. But 4 people actually dying today, and another 4 dying tomorrow, and somehow we put blinkers on around that. But there's no blinkers on for the people who are directly affected by that, and there's absolute devastation. You think of the friends, the family, the children, the parents, everybody who's affected there. And I will say, people don't have to die for their lives to be hugely impacted by alcohol. I'm thinking here particularly of children who are growing up in homes that have been impacted by alcohol. So about 200,000 children, about 1 in 6, would be living in a home that's impacted by a parent whose parents drinking. And that stays, that trauma, that goes with that, stays with people. It can last a lifetime. There was a recent survey actually done from Maynooth University, which found that a quarter of the adult population had grown up with this particular adverse childhood experience of experiencing alcohol harm in the home. And it has all sorts of impacts. There's a destabilization effect. It actually literally affects the way the brain develops, where you're unsure of the ground on your feet. You're never sure from day to day, maybe hour by hour, what sort of parent is actually going to be there. Is it the kind, loving parent? Is it the absent parent? Is it the scary, angry, parent as well? So there are many, many different aspects, to alcohol harm that impact literally hundreds of thousands of people in this country. And if you were to look at it purely on a cost basis, it costs about 12 billion annually to Ireland. It's about 2.5% of GDP. Massive cost, absolutely enormous cost. And yet somehow we're enthralled to this product, or should I say we're enthralled to the industries, who push the product.
Caller says people will start making poutine again if it gets too expensive, but you obviously do want to see minimum pricing brought in as a key part of what you're saying. We're at a point at the moment where it's a lot cheaper to buy beer in supermarkets and off licences than it is to buy them in pubs. Now, given that one of the arguments for the development of pubs back in the day was that it provided a safe place in which people could have drinks and it would be regulated and it would be controlled, it seems that people are now being driven almost out of the pubs and back into their homes because it's cheaper to buy it in a supermarket or in an off licence and have the drink at home. I mean, is that a contradiction that you're cognizant of, and is that something you'd like to see addressed? Because the argument is, if you're in the pub, at least there's perhaps some control.
We certainly see that, home drinking is particularly risky. Exactly as you were going back to, there are two elements to it. There's, the price, the fact that it's much cheaper to be got in the supermarket, but there's also the thing about the amount that you drink, that you pour so much more, that there isn't that control that you would have within a pub. Actually, the price of alcohol that you would get in a supermarket today is literally the same as what it was 20 years ago. There was a study actually done with Sheffield University, which published last year, which looked at that. And it's really quite incredible. So even though we have minimum unit pricing, which is a really good thing, when it was introduced back in 2022, it only brought prices back up to where they were 20 years ago. So, that in terms of affordability, that means that alcohol is much, much more affordable today than it was at the turn of the century. It's actually 70% more affordable now. So one of the things that we would be calling for is a levy on the alcohol industry. Again, when you just point to that level of harm, 12 billion annually, that needs to be paid for, and I think there's certainly a case to be made to increase excise duties or to put some type of levy on it. And I think particularly to keep targeting the very cheap supermarket alcohol. Again, if you make the comparison with, cigarettes, over the last 10 years, there's consistently been an increase in excise duties applied to cigarettes. It's gone up every single year. Whereas in the last 10 years, there has been no change in excise duties on alcohol. And we really would be questioning why, for a product that causes so much harm, that literally costs the state so much harm, that devastates families, why aren't we, taking a proactive look at this and saying, actually, excise duty should be increased every year in line with inflation, and a similar approach with minimum unit pricing. It needs to be increased in line with inflation annually. Otherwise, it just loses its value and you're back to square one again.
Dr. Sheila Gilheeney, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. It is Men's Health Week, and the message from Alcohol Action Ireland in conjunction with Men's Health Week is to know your numbers, look at your alcohol intake and try and limit it to the recommendation that you take no more than 17 units a week and have gaps between drinking days as well. For the moment, Doctor, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
It's 28 minutes past 11. I'm going to take a short break. Back after these.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. The 9 till Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
The Buncrana Golf Club development draw is here, with over €40,000 in prizes up for grabs. The grand prize is a stunning Hyundai i30 N-Line, plus 4 other fantastic prizes worth over €10,000. Tickets are available online at driveathomedraw.ie or from any club member. Don't miss your chance to win big and support Buncrana Golf Club. Get your tickets today.
It all begins with a thump as the needle nestles into a deep valley of vinyl. Sizzle and crackle turns into fizzle and scratch, and the mesmerizing rotations of pop and hiss.
The crackle of a vinyl record. Just one of the ordinary sounds rediscovered by Sean. Whatever sounds you've lost, our hearing experts could help you find them again. Book a free hearing test at Specsavers.
With over 1,000 TFI Local Link door-to-door services nationwide, if you're on our route, we're on our way. To use the service, simply pre-book the day before you want to travel with your TFI Local Link office. To find out more about door-to-door services in your area, visit transportforireland.ie. We're Transport for Ireland. We're transport for you.
Is the appearance of your staff important to your business? It's the first point of contact for customers when entering your premises. At C&M Embroidery in Letterkenny, they have a huge range of clothing covering all areas of the workplace. It's widely known that customers warm to and trust employees that present themselves well. Have your company name embroidered or printed on all your work uniforms. Contact C&M Embroidery on 07491 28097 and get your staff looking their best.
Coming this year to Dublin for the very first time, 71 shows completely sold out. Hamilton at the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. Experience the revolutionary musical that's taken the world by storm. Witness history come alive with electrifying performances and unforgettable music with a modern twist. Book your place now on the outlet at highlandradio.com or call us on 074 91 25,000.
Business Matters on Highland Radio is brought to you by Local Enterprise Office Donegal. If you have an idea to start or grow your business within Donegal, contact the Local Enterprise Office team to find out more about the supports available for businesses. See localenterprise.ie/Donegal.
And you're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. We're joined in studio by Chris Ashmore for Business Matters. Chris, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Donal.
Great to see you. Chris, a number of things to get through on the programme this morning, and a bit later on we'll be discussing the broadcast that's going out on Sunday. And it's one that's been waiting a while to go out for various reasons, GAA matches, elections and so on. So we'll get to that in a few moments. But beginning with the business news, and the Donegal Women in Business Network hosting an event in the coming days.
Yes, the event is called Spirits and Solstice, Empowering Women in Business, and it's going to take place at Oakfield Park in Raphoe next Thursday from 7 o'clock. The guest speaker will be Laura Bonner, founder of the Muff Liquor Company, and the MC for the evening will be the journalist and author Cathy Donaghy. And it's free to members. If you're not a member, you can contact the Donegal Women in Business Network. Lovely setting for a nice evening at this time of year.
Can you just confirm the date of that?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday?
Next Thursday.
No, because I've had huge debates with people about whether next Thursday is the Thursday coming or the Thursday after next. There's big, long debates about that.
Yes.
So presumably then it'll be the 20th.
Yes.
It'll be the 20th. That's grand. Congratulations to Letterkenny Chamber, a special recognition
award. Yeah, just to mention, of course, some people may have heard this already. This was last week winning a special recognition for excellence award at Chambers Ireland's overall award. So that's great for them. And staying with chamber-related matters, nominations now been accepted for the Shop LK Retailer of the Year award, and you'll find details of that on the Chamber Facebook and its other social media platforms. So there'll be big interest in that. And I might as well at this stage, another Chamber-related matter. They have a June event, Sustainability of the Supply Chain. It's taking place on Tuesday, the 25th of June, from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. at the Donegal ETB's Letterkenny Training Centre in Ballyrane. And speakers will include Liz McCarron, Supply Chain Manager at Philips Medisize Ireland, and Joseph Dvoris of the ecological fields. He's an ecological field specialist at Very Connect, and there'll be a panel of business leaders there, and people, including people from Donegal Bees, Swannet, Gundry, and Killybegs, Little Mamas, Galato. So lots happening there.
And obviously sustainability hugely important as people become more and more environmentally aware, climate aware. You know, to be able to say, yes, this is a sustainable business is going to be more and more of a marketing tool. And let's say it's going to be more than a marketing tool. It's going to be an absolute necessity as we go forward.
Absolutely. And the whole supply chain, this is something that wouldn't have even been on the radar years ago. So an important topic to be developed there.
Moving on to the New Frontiers programme. If anyone wants to apply for Phase 2, now is the time.
Yeah, the closing date is actually tomorrow, so last chance to get involved in that. It's hosted the CoLab in Letterkenny, also ATU and Sligo for people, and funding, mentor support. It really is a very good programme for businesses in the early stages of their development. New Frontiers NW.ie is the website for that.
And if you want to get that form filled in, obviously, get the skates on, because tomorrow is the
yes.
closing date. the local enterprise office in Donegal hosting an access to finance information session.
Yeah, this is all about Microfinance Ireland, and we've highlighted this on the programme in the past. Tomorrow they're having an information day. You can register by going to localenterprise.ie to find out more about that. And look, there's a lot of things out there, but you need to equip yourself with the information as to what potentially may apply to you. And speaking of which, there's also a business support clinic taking place this Friday from 10 to 11 o'clock, and that's online via Zoom and through the local enterprise office, and an explanation of the grant aid process, and also you can get some one-to-one business advice and some really good tips there as well.
A lot of emphasis on supporting the Irish language at the moment, not only in Galway areas but in Letterkenny as well, with the Leaner and Letterkenny and other initiatives. And business grants potentially available if business owners want to promote language in their business.
Yes, this was announced earlier on in the year. So if you're a business owner and you have an interest in Irish, there is funding available to promote the Irish language in your business. Now, this can be things like your shop front, your name in Irish, things like that. The deadline is not until the end of October, so plenty of time to find out more about that. Contact your local enterprise office on that one.
Now, we know there is speculation that there could be an election in the autumn, and we have already been told that the budget's going to be brought forward to the first week in October, and Minister Michael McGrath has been dropping hints right, left and centre, and entrepreneurs keep an eye out.
Yes, he's been hinting that it'll be, I suppose you could call it a business-friendly budget, and particular initiatives to help the self-employed and entrepreneurs. And of course, this all comes at a time on a bigger scale. Of course, we've seen the European Central Bank making a rate cut last week from 4% to 3.75%. More rate cuts expected, so that means the cost of borrowing will come down, which will be good for everybody. However, the Central Bank President Christine Lagarde has warned that it could be a bumpy road ahead, so we won't take anything for granted. And still some concerns throughout Europe about inflation. Most countries now it's down to around 2%, but with the ongoing crises that we have in several places, it's still, it's not a clear road ahead.
Yeah. However, there is potentially some very good news in the offing, with speculation about a major European company opening a new facility in Donegal, and you're on the case, and hopefully you'll have a substantial feature on that before too long.
Yeah, limited in what we can say at the moment, but there is a European company looking at Letterkenny with a new business. We will find out more before the end of the month. €1 million investment. It's set to create around 20 jobs. So watch this space, Donal.
And if people want the skinny and the latest on that, Business Matters will be the place in which to get it. Right, let's talk about the podcast this week, because it's an interesting one, and I'm going to declare an interest here. The subject of this would be a friend of mine, someone whom I hold in very high regard, not surprisingly, because she's involved in the music business. But it's a podcast that's been lurking around for a while but never quite made it on air yet.
Yes, Zara Montgomery is the person who I have been speaking to in relation to, she's a new band, Snapshot Live, set up for catering for weddings and also corporate events. And essentially, this is a one-stop shop for all your wedding music, and also looking at the corporate market. So, people may be planning a wedding. There can be the ceremony music. There might be reception. You could have a band at the wedding. There's a DJ later on. She's really brought it all together, package for everything, saves you time, and a very experienced person in terms of her own background in the music industry. And a little bit unfortunate for her, because we did record this some time ago, but we had the Donegal Armagh game, and there was a shootout there and penalties, so that put it back a little bit. And then with the elections, the podcast was imminent, Donal, but unfortunately so was the count. And,
indeed, and the count still beat it. Yeah.
But that's on this Sunday. The podcast is already available, and she's got a great response to this new venture already.
And if anyone wants to see Zara in action, plenty of YouTube videos. She plays with the Seeger Sessions, and if anyone's had a chance to see the Seeger Sessions, she's the one that's sitting down at the keyboard. And if you do get a chance to see the Seeger Sessions, do, because it's just one absolutely mighty, mighty gig. and it's fantastic. So if you get that chance, take it. Just chuck that in there. So Zara's will make it on air, so we can say at this stage that there's no major GA matches coming up this weekend. No.
Well, there are major matches, but she's going ahead at 6 o'clock on Sunday.
So
we hope.
There is no match that might go to penalties and actually encroach after 6. We understand that.
We understand.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah. So yes, all barring anything major happening, that episode will go out on air on Highland Radio on Sunday evening next after the 6 o'clock news. Chris, if anyone wants to get in touch, if they have any more leads on major companies coming to open factories in Donegal or any other business news in the region?
Yes, you can email me on businessmatters@highlandradio.com.
Chris Ashmore, we'll see you back next week. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Donal.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Hello, my name's Enda Walsh and I'm a dairy farmer from Ormore, County Galway. In Ireland, we're always looking for a better cow. A cow that's healthier, happier and longer lived. A cow that gives us more milk of a higher quality with specific health benefits. A cow that has a lower carbon footprint. We're finding that better cow through our world-leading breeding programs based on years of science and research. I'm speaking on behalf of the National Dairy Council, everyone's dairy.
Virgin Media is rolling out 2 gig full fibre broadband to more and more homes across Ireland. Big homes, little homes, haunted houses, big gaffs in the country, non-bouncy castles. Number 16, Oxbow Lake Houses. The house with all the cats. To get Ireland's best broadband, check your address at virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media, it's playtime.
T's and C's apply. See virginmedia.ie. Subject to availability. Ireland's best broadband. See virginmedia.ie/proof.
For strong, unique, weather-resistant homes, choose Cedral Exteriors. Our fibre cement roof slates and wall cladding ranges are built to last for generations, exceeding EU quality standards. Members of Guaranteed Irish, our products are locally made and beautifully designed, offering long-term peace of mind. Visit cedral.ie. Cedral Exteriors. Strength guaranteed.
Thank you, Ireland. We're bringing it back. On average, we're now returning over 2.5 million plastic bottles and cans every day. And since launch on February 1st, we've brought back over 150 million drinks containers to deposit return points nationwide. Deposit return ensures we value our resources, recycle more efficiently, and it helps us work towards achieving our EU recycling targets. Return for less litter, less waste, and better recycling for Ireland. Visit return.ie for more.
Looking for that Hoka experience? Try the new range at bmcsports.ie. New Arahi 7, Clifton 9 or the Eversoft Bondi 8. Step into our safe size experience so you can fit the best trainer for your foot. Let us make your trainer experience the best it can be. Brian McCormick Sports, Main Street, Letterkenny.
You're welcome back to the 9 till noon show. We're into the final 17 minutes of the programme. Quite a bit to get through. 1 or 2 comments before we move on. There were over 35 pubs in Letterkenny in the 60s and 70s. No one drank in the house and nobody was the owner of the house they lived in. Older people listening to the radio will know what I am saying. Caller says, can any of your listeners shed some light on why there are no public bins in busy tourist areas like Schlievlig? We travelled with extended family and our dog for a day out walking. We bought ice cream and drinks at the cliffs. There wasn't a bin in sight. Lots of other visitors were like ourselves, searching of somewhere to dispose of their water bottles. No bins either for dog poo. I think when they charge heavily for parking, the very least they should do is provide bins. If you go to Glenveigh, they're provided, but none at Schlievlig, and it was very busy with visitors from all over the world. Now, I want to go to Zoom because we are joined on Zoom by Colin Campbell, who has published a book called There Is Always Hope, and that book was born out of some tragic news that Colin's partner received in January of 2020. We're going to go to Colin on Zoom. Colin, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Colin, on the 24th of January, the rest of the world was looking at a developing issue in China and wondering if that was going to start to impact people here. I think Sam McConkey was having his first interviews on this programme with Greg at around about that time. However, for you and your partner Deirdre, your focus was a lot closer to home.
Very much so. You mentioned that date. It was on that day that, with no forewarning, she received a diagnosis of stage 4 secondary breast cancer, which had spread also to her lungs and liver. We had no forewarning, so it was a heck of a shock, I can tell you. So the book, our story, really is written from my point of view as a partner, and really takes us through that early period of the shock. The fear really following the diagnosis. It wasn't a good story. The medical appointments following that, and then to where you say, Donald, where just when we thought perhaps a few weeks in that we might have settled and found ourselves, the world, changed. Yeah. And while we were obviously very frightened about what was happening throughout the world, quite frankly, our biggest fear was what effect that would have on the treatment plan. Yeah. Which Gary had just been given. Yeah.
I mean, how close were you to hospital in terms of, I presume, radiotherapy was needed, chemo was needed, the various treatments needed? How close were you to those facilities?
Well, we're very, very fortunate. We live in Drumahoe, in Derry, which is just a stone's throw away from the Altna-Kelvin Hospital. And at this stage, we'll pay tribute to them. They were superb. The oncologists, doctors, nurses, support staff were excellent. We were very close and very lucky. From the accents I had heard in the wards while I was waiting in the early stages, pre-COVID stages, people were coming from all parts, north and south, to get there. One guy had travelled 200 miles, and that was remarkable. We were fortunate, yeah.
Through COVID, and I'm sure when you're in that situation where a close person is being treated for cancer, and you're going to be worried about the prognosis, you're going to be worried about the future. I mean, counselling, assistance is very important, having people to talk to, having the chance to actually process what you're going through. I'm sure when you were going through COVID, the focus was going to be on get the treatment, but a lot of those ancillary supports were going to be withdrawn. And maybe even sometimes there were days when what you needed more than anything was to sit down with your mate, have a cup of coffee and talk about something else, but you couldn't.
Very much so. A cup of coffee or something much stronger, I can tell you. We had great support in the early stages. That support, in a sense, was gone overnight. That was nobody's fault. It was COVID. We were faced with, being on our own, really, and the isolation that comes with that. It was difficult. People wanted to see us. There were some funny stories. Like one of the boys came up with his wife to see us. They'd driven about 70 miles to shout in through the window. They couldn't even use the loo in the house. We had people who, tied shopping bags to the front door handle with gifts. And almost counter, but whilst we were on our own, we were overwhelmed by the kindness of our close friends, of acquaintances, and even strangers, who were checking us out through, texts and emails to see what we needed. We needed anything, and we're very, very taken by that. But for me, in some of my more private moments, I didn't have mates. I could text them, but it wasn't the same. It really wasn't. Yeah. And I think it led me, of my generation, I'm programmed in my 60s, programmed to be sort of solve problems, to protect. And I was facing, dilemmas really saying, am I up to this? Can I do this? What am I meant to be doing? The helplessness was there.
And the question was, who's going to protect you?
Yeah. Well, probably, yeah, because I was sort of put on the brave face. Very happy to do so. I was determined from day one that we were going to win. And, the nature of Deirdre's condition is that there is no cure, it's a lifetime of continuing treatments. But from day one, we said, well, we'll accept that if we can, So, yeah, there was a lot for me to reevaluate in terms of my own sense of my self-worth, whether I could do this, but yet a determination to revise my own thoughts. So let's not dwell on things here. Let's just get on with it. Every day's a bonus, and it's up to me to try and get us through it. But it was difficult, yeah.
We're almost 4.5 years down the line at this point. I mean, the first question is, how is Deirdre now? And the second question is, how are you?
Question number one, Deirdre is super. Thank you for asking, because sometimes I forget to mention that. She has had a very successful series of treatments. You mentioned radiography. She had 6 chemos, and then what regular now we have biologicals, as they're called. Don't ask me to explain the detail, but they're working. She's in remission, and it's as I said, there's no cure, but this is as good as it gets, and we're very, very happy with that. You know, she's now a grandmother, an excellent one, and she's plenty to do. You know, from my point of view, I feel writing this story in one way was therapeutic. It was also a big challenge, but I feel that somehow, and the important thing is sometimes you do not know, you can't plan it, but somehow we got through. I'm delighted about that. I'm very pleased. Very pleased, yeah.
You called the book There Is Always Hope. I mean, the book, I'm sure, could also have been called Why Us? It could have been called Oh Bloody Hell. It could have had many titles. The fact that you've called it There Is Always Hope suggests that there is a positivity perhaps running through it that says, look, no matter how bad things got, we persevered, we got through, and that is an important message to get out there.
I think that while the book, from my point of view, is very personal, it deals with 2 universal topics. One's cancer diagnosis, and the other was the worldwide experience of, as yet, unquantifiable effects of COVID on us all. You know, those are 2. Why is there always hope? For me, the one currency we had was hope. And within 3 days, with our second, I think it was, appointment, I asked the oncologist, do we have hope here? He said, yes. I said, we're going to grasp that. So the currency was hope, and the title then kind of wrote itself. All of those other titles did come to mind, yes. But the most positive thing for us, and the message I want to get to others, is no matter how bad it looks, there's always hope.
Colin, that is a great point to end this on. The book is There Is Always Hope. It's available, as they say, in all good bookshops. I'm sure it's available online as well through Amazon and the various online platforms. Colin Campbell, look, all the best to Deirdre and to yourself, and let people read this book and let people be inspired by this book, and as the title suggests, let people take hope from it.
I hope so. Just one last point to mention, though. The proceeds will be donated to the Make Seconds Count charity, who were so helpful and continue to be to Deirdre, and I just wanted to pay tribute to them also. Thank you very much.
Colin, thank you very much indeed. All the best to you and Deirdre.
The 9 till Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
From Limerick to London, Newbridge to New York, or Stony Batter to Sydney, wherever you are and whenever you're jetting off, get global travel money at your local post office. Make your money matter more with 0% commission on cash and card. Search OnPost Travel Money or visit your local post office today. T's and C's apply. OnPost Money currency card is issued by PPS EUSA pursuant to licence by MasterCard International. PPS EUSA is authorised by the National Bank of Belgium and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland for conduct of business rules. OnPost is authorised by the Minister for Finance to provide foreign currency cash.
Do you suffer from high cholesterol, menopause symptoms, digestive issues, anxiety, aches and pains, or a lack of energy? The highly trained team at The Natural Way Letterkenny can provide advice on natural remedies for a number of individual health issues. The Natural Way also has its own brand of herbal treatments to help fight fatigue, relieve digestive discomfort, maintain a healthy immune system, and alleviate common menopause symptoms. The Natural Way at Letterkenny Shopping Centre, your one-stop health shop.
Attention all home and business owners. Are you looking for the best value for money when it comes to plumbing and tile solutions? At McDade's Bathroom Plumbing and Tiles, our experienced staff are ready to provide top quality services and products that meet your needs and exceed your expectations. Our focus is on providing expert advice and top quality products. McDade's Bathroom Plumbing and Tiles showroom in Buncrana is dedicated to delivering great value for your money. Visit our showroom today.
Ready for an adventure? Discover Legoland, Harry Potter World or Disney on Ice in Belfast with Boys Travel. Call 9151043 to book your dream trip today. Fun and magic await. See Boys Tours on Facebook for more.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by McElhinney's. With over 50 years of serving the community in Donegal, McElhinney's is proud to be part of every moment, big and small. Support local, shop McElhinney's Ballybuffet.
Dry with a mix of cloud and sunny spells. Top temperatures 14 to 16 in light westerly or variable winds backing southwest by afternoon. Dry for much of tonight with clear spells to start, but enjoy that dry spell because it ain't going to last, my friends. It'll become overcast as the night goes on with rain and drizzle developing in Donegal around dawn. Lowest overnight temperatures 8 to 10 in moderate southerly winds. And the outlook for tomorrow, I'm afraid, is wet and overcast in the morning and afternoon, rain becoming widespread. That rain slowly clearing northeastwards through the evening with scattered showers following. Rain lingering in northeastern parts until nightfall. Breezy with moderate to fresh southerly winds, veering westerly and easing once the rain clears. And top temperatures tomorrow of 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. And that's almost the 9 till noon show for now. We're going to take just a closing few of your comments before we go. Caller says, I'm hearing second hand that in Australia, when you buy petrol or diesel at a filling station, the price of car insurance and vehicle and road taxes are factored into the price paid at the pump. You don't need to buy individual insurance and pay separate taxes on your own. Would that not be a much better system than the current Irish system, which deals with uninsured motorists? It would be much more efficient than the current profit-making businesses for the insurance companies and would eliminate the state bureaucracies and trivial court cases. Now, I know that is a system that's used in many places with regards to road taxes. And that instead of having a tax and a tax disc, the road tax is factored into the price of petrol. Whether you can do that with insurance is another question. I'm not sure that's the case. I'm not sure that would work. I know the feeling is that why should I pay road tax at whatever the rate is when I drive 10,000 kilometres a year and a person that drives 100 kilometres pays exactly the same. That's the raison d'etre for doing it with the fuel in terms of the road tax. Insurance, I'm not sure works that way, but I am open to correction. Comment online from Patrick. Patrick says homeless figures up, cost of living up, immigration, neutrality, overcrowding in emergency departments, and the establishment parties topped the poll. Why? Because over 50% of people didn't vote. Fair point, Patrick, that the turnout was roughly in and around about the 50% mark in most areas. And if the turnout is 50%, that means 50% of people are not casting their vote and are not using their vote. It is a very fair point. Caller says, I'm waiting over 4 years for an appointment with dermatology. I keep getting letters asking if I still want an appointment. Every letter is returned to the HSE waiting list stating yes. And that is a common thing that they send out letters, and maybe that's one of the ways they're getting the waiting lists down, is trying to, because they reckon there are people on waiting lists that don't need to be on the waiting lists. So if they can get those people off the list, then that is going to make it easier for people who actually do need the treatment to get the treatment. Caller says, why don't the HSE do a temporary purchase card similar to a credit card with a set amount for that procedure? That's a novel way of potentially looking at the cross-border treatment or the treatment in private hospitals. Caller says, good interview with the Ombudsman, clear examples and clear questions with examples of the difficulties people are facing, and good to see the Ombudsman has a common sense approach. And a caller has asked me, and this will be the final comment of the morning, would you give a mention of a talk by historian Dr. Joe Kelly? He's travelling over the tracks of time, delivering a talk on the history of the Donegal Railways tonight at Conwell Parish Church in Letterkenny. That's the venue, and that's from Paul. Happy to do so. Dr. Joe Kelly, always an interesting man to speak to, and his history of the railways will, I've no doubt, be an engaging one. John Breslin is up around the northwest. Thanks to everyone who contributed to the show this morning. Thanks to you for listening. Thanks to Shannon and Caroline for all their assistance. For myself, Donal Kavanagh. Greg's back tomorrow, but for me, have a very good day.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union.